Good evening, everybody. My name is Nicole. I'm your Zoom moderator for the evening. If you can briefly just check your the way your computer or your phone is listed under participants. This way, if you want to speak or you are presenting for your application, I can locate you and I don't call you by your wife's name, if you're, or your husband's name on accident. The way you do that is just look to the left. You should have a participants sidebar. If you do not, you can click on the participant button, which is at the bottom towards the middle and slightly to the left. It looks like two people. It says participants underneath it. Just click that and your participant screen will show up. And from there, scroll down and locate either your phone number or the way your computer or iPhone has you listed, and just rename yourself either by your application number or your full name. Either one is fine. To do that, just mouse over your name and click on the More button and scroll down to rename, and you can rename yourself. And with that, I will turn the microphone over to our chairman.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals virtual meeting. Per Executive Order 202.28 by the Governor of the State of New York, the town of Smithtown is required to continue hosting all public meetings either in person, in which case we must provide physical distancing and prohibit public contact, or public meetings can be held remotely via conference call or similar services. Additionally, per the executive order, the town continues to live stream, record, and transcribe each meeting. Governor Cuomo stated at the beginning of the pandemic that all levels of government must continue to function as normal or as close to normal as possible. As a reminder for any resident wishing to view today's meeting, you can do so by clicking on the Agendas and Meeting button on the homepage of the town's website at www.smithtownnewyork.gov. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinance, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts that you present here tonight. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board and shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. The following procedures were implemented for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. After your case is announced by Mr. Donadio, the moderator will connect you to the meeting so you can present your case to the board. After your case has been presented to the board, if any board member has any questions, they will be asked. After that, any interesting party who would like to speak on this case will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions or concerns, after which the case will be closed. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. You can contact the planning board after 12 p.m. tomorrow for the status of your case. We do have some adjournments. First adjournment is case number 18389, AJ Richardson Son, Inc. That has been adjourned to May 11th. The next case is case 18406, MJ Industries, LLC. That has been adjourned to April 27th. And case number 18420, Joseph Pasquari. A new hearing date has been set for him on March 9th. All right, Blaze.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda is case number 18451, Nicholas Catalano, 157 7th Street, St. James, the location of the property, the north side of 7th Street, 196 feet west of Lake Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 26 feet for a proposed 20-foot by 40-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Good evening.
Hello?
Are you the applicant, sir?
I am, yes.
Okay, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Nick Catalano. My address is 157 7th Street, St. James, New York, 11780.
All right, Nick, would you like to tell us why you're here tonight?
Sure. I'm looking to add a pool onto my property to enhance the value of my property. The way that the zoning rules work is where my pool is going is on the side of the house. The way that it works is that if you're 50 feet from the back fence line, you're considered in the backyard. When you go over that, you're considered in the side yard. When you're in the backyard, you only have to be 6 feet from the fence line. When you're in the side yard, you have to be 12 feet from the fence line. Now, 10 feet of my pool are going to be in the side yard, and the pool will be 12 feet from the fence line. The issue that comes up is the fact that the total side yard has to be a total of 28 feet. And when you look at the right side of my house, there is a carport, and the carport and where the pool is will only give me a total of 26 feet from the fence line on the total side yard. So really, I'm looking for a 2-foot waiver on the total side yard.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, nothing.
No? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to be heard on this application?
Chairman, I don't have anyone with their hand up. I will remind folks who do wish to speak to use the raise a hand button, which is on the lower right hand. If you're on your phone, hit *9. Sorry, thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Good night.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18452, Stephen Zhao, 24 Ramsey Road, Comac, the location of the property, the west side of Ramsey Road, 315 feet north of Weldon Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 36 feet, reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 40 feet, increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 34% for a 3,211 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling with a 204 square foot attached garage. Increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 75% for a proposed driveway and walkway.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Todd O'Connell, architect, doing business at 1200 Veterans Highway, Hauppauge, New York.
All right. You'd like to tell us why you're here tonight, Todd?
Absolutely. Representing the zoos who are actually here tonight with us as well, joining us on the Zoom. What we're proposing to do is renovate an existing home. They're moving into this area, so they're trying to make a home that would be suitable for their family. But to explain some of the variances, on paper, they may sound extreme, but in my opinion, in reality, they're not as bad as it may seem. The front variance request that we're going for, where 40 is required and we're proposing 36, that is just for a front portico. The house itself meets the code requirements. The only projection, in front of the 40-foot required would be for a covered portico at the front door of the home. So that's an open structure, open nature. didn't feel it's going to have any negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And like on the same note, we have a rear patio. We're requesting a rear relief where 50 foot's required and proposing 40. Again, that's not to the house. The house actually yields a setback of 53 feet, but we're looking to expand off the back of the house and open a patio, just so they can enjoy the outdoors. And but unfortunately, that patio will need to encroach into the rear yard slightly, and we're requesting a 40-foot rear yard setback for that patio. The GFA, working with my clients, talking to them a little bit about what their needs are. We came up with a plan that suited all the space requirements that they were asking me of. Unfortunately, that put us at a home that would have 34% gross floor area. It is inclusive of a guest room on the first floor for their parents, an attached garage, dining room, living room, family room, and kitchen, which is fairly standard, for a home. We're not looking to, do multiple rooms. It's kind of standard for a home in that area. And for their children on the second floor, we're looking to have 4 bedrooms, a master suite, and then 3 bedrooms for their children. But unfortunately, to come up with the room sizes that the zoos needed to be comfortable in their home, we had to request 4% relief from gross floor area. As far as the driveway, maybe some clarity on that. What we're looking to do within the front yard is a driveway. It's a 2-car driveway, 20-foot wide, 40-foot long to the street. We have a walkway area that's 24-foot long by 4 foot, which goes from the driveway to the front portico, and the portico that encroaches into the front yard, which is 12 foot by 5 foot. But that only, in my calculations, I believe that's only 31%, not 75% of the front yard. But perhaps I might be, figuring it wrong. But that's basically where I'm coming up for the paved surfaces in the front yard. So that's, you can see it on the plot plan that's up. That's all the paved areas. It's nice to keep the cars off the street. It's nice to have where you could park 2 cars side by side. So I don't feel that we're, asking for excessive relief in the, in the front of the home to accommodate their vehicles. To talk a little bit about the points of the variances, now that I've talked a little bit about the merits of the case, I don't feel this is going to have any negative impact on the environment at all. This home itself, we feel it's going to add character to the neighborhood. If you've seen the front elevation, it's a very attractive home. It'll increase the value of the surrounding area, and felt that, it'll have only a benefit to the community itself. This is a proposed variance, so we're here talking to the board, explaining our issues. It is a proposed variance. And unfortunately, talking with the zoos, working with them over the last more than 6 months, we really felt that, going back and forth with different designs, that this was the best application to put forth to the board to accomplish their goals. And with that said, I'd love to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Donati or myself rode through the neighborhood this morning. 3,200 square feet is going to be huge for that area. Most of the homes are, 1-story homes, anywhere from, again, 1,700 to maybe 2,500 square feet. This is what, you're proposing 3,200 square feet?
3,200, including the garage itself.
Yeah. All right.
We hate to get rid of the garage. I'm sure that could solve the floor area ratio, but it's something that they'd really like to keep is an attached garage on their home. you know, they actually use it. Unlike a lot of other people, they actually like to keep a car in their garage.
All right. Does anyone else on the board have any questions on this application?
Yeah, I have a question probably for Blaze. Blaze, I kind of came to the same conclusion as Mr. O'Connell. Can you explain the paving percentage in the front yard?
Yeah, I mean, I came up with 31%. It's a 24 by 4 foot walkway, a 40 by 20 driveway. Actually, it's a little less than that because it kind of curves in towards the street, and a 12 by 5 portico that projects into the front yard. Now, if I take the front yard area of 40 foot, you know, by the 75 or 3,000 square feet of front area, and I, you know, divide it into the paved areas, I'm coming up with 31%.
And that sounds about right to me. I can't explain the discrepancy. I can only assume that it was a Scribner's error on the denial letter that didn't get picked up.
Thank you.
I would like to make a comment just further regarding the proposal, as the chairman pointed out. We did do an inspection of the property earlier today, and the area as a whole is primarily comprised of ranch-style homes that are in the area of about 12 to 1,500 square feet. And there's also a mix of what, you know, some may call a split or high ranch-style home that's probably between 1,500 and 2,000 square feet. The house proposed at 3,200 square feet would not really fit in with the character of the neighborhood. So if it were possible to scale down the bulk of the house, it would certainly help as far as appearances go when looking at it in the neighborhood as a whole.
Okay, I mean, I would like to say that, you know, with what I could perhaps do, again, because, you know, the first thing that we would look at is reduction of the garage, you know, the removal of the garage, because that would give us the area that we would have to lose. But one of the things that I could do, you know, as an architect that I think would help as well, and, you know, I could submit a plan to the town, is right now this home is designed with a gable style roof. So what I could do is switch the roof itself, possibly lower the pitch of the roof a little bit, switch the roof to what we call a hip roof, which will give the appearance of a much smaller home, because you're not going to have the bulk on the two sides of the home itself. So that might be, you know, one thing that we can do to try to, you know, help it blend a little bit better and not feel, you know, as powering on the lot itself. You know,
does that still keep the FAR at 34%?
Yeah, well, the actual FAR that we're proposing is 33.72. I believe in the denial, they just, you know, upped it, you know, averaged it up, but the request is actually what we're proposing in the plan that you see is 33.72. So we're 3.72% over the maximum that's allowed.
All right. Anyone else have any questions on the application? No?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Yes, Chairman, I have well, hang on, her hand went up. Christine, I don't know if she just, okay, Christine, if you, Christine Hassat?
Hello, Christine?
She's muted.
Yeah, she just got to unmute herself.
Yeah.
There you go. Christine, you there? Okay, she's unmuted, but I don't hear anything.
Hello, Christine?
Okay. You know what? If you meant to raise your hand for something else, that's okay. If you can, just let us know. Oh, I have her hand up. Her hand keeps going up. So I want to give her a chance to speak. Christine Hassat.
Do you have any questions? And how long or how loud it's going to be?
Can't hear. Yeah, somebody is, I just muted them, the other person, sorry. All right, so I guess, I don't know, maybe she's got some problems with her. Might be her hand keeps going up, but I can't hear her. Maybe she can use the chat. Hang on a second. Do we have this in chat? No, so we have okay. So Christine, if you have something to add and we can't hear you and you want to just type in yes in the chat function.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Oh, good, okay. Okay, you can hear me now, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Christine?
Yes, hi.
Hi, could you introduce yourself, spell your last
Yes.
name and give your address, please?
Okay, my name is Christine Hassett, Hassett. I live at 47 Radburn Drive, which actually is right behind the house that's next to the one that's going to be rebuilt. I assume it's being rebuilt.
I believe so.
On the map it says Lisa Boyle. My part of my yard attaches to the back of Lisa Boyle's house on the next street.
All right.
Okay, so obviously proximity of this house concerns me. I went through, a few years back, a house across the street was also asking for a variance. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that was a euphemism for raising the house and rebuilding it. So obviously this is a rebuild. I agree with the previous speaker that this house is not in fit with the types of houses that are around here. I myself live in an L-shaped ranch. The Boyles live in a ranch. The people that the house that's being raised is a ranch. There's not that many higher homes on the street, a couple of maybe capes, and like Steve mentioned, a few splits, but not of the large gabled variety that's being proposed. I have to admit that it's out of character for the street, and I'm a bit concerned that it's just not going to look right. And I don't also agree that just because someone's putting a quote unquote nicer house in the neighborhood means it's enhancing the value of the other homes. I mean, it's just not going to fit. It doesn't look right. It doesn't fit the style of the homes that are on the street.
Not if you got
I live around.
Listen, I'm sorry. Hold on. I can only, if you're not speaking, please turn your microphone off and don't speak over each other, please.
I'm sorry. Somebody say something?
It's okay. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just concerned because and the other thing too is not to mention how long is it going to take for this house to get raised and rebuilt? Most of us work from home, live from home, stay home all the time now. And I had to listen to that house across the street being rebuilt for almost a year with the constant hammering and working from home. I don't understand. I mean, if they were planning on moving into this neighborhood, buy a house appropriate to the size of your family. I don't understand why they were thinking of buying this house and thinking that they could put a large house there. It doesn't make any sense. I really don't understand it. If the architects make it so it fits the property better, that would be great. But personally, I don't see how this is going to work.
Okay, fine.
That's just the way I see it right now.
Anything else?
Now, and also, I guess you also solved the problem of the mystery of the pavement in the front, because the proposal had said 75%, which I'm like, that seems like a lot of pavement, but according to the diagram, it doesn't look that bad as far as the driveway and the walkway.
Right.
So that had me concerned, because I'm like, who paid 75% of their front lawn? You know, it was kind of unfortunate wording on the paper that I received. But yeah, you have another vote for, if you're going to build that house, it's going to have to be made more in accordance with the houses in the neighborhood, because it's just not going to look right.
All right, fine. All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Is there anyone else?
No, Chairman, I don't have anybody else with their hand up.
No. Mr. O'Connell, would you like to come back and respond at all?
Yes, I would. They mentioned the house behind us mentioned, the size of the home. What we're building from her view wouldn't be affected no matter what we do, even if we were to reduce the size of the home. It would still be the same width, it would still be the same height. So no matter what we change, it would have absolutely no impact on that property. In fact, her deck, which yields a 33-foot backyard setback, we're even going to have a greater setback on our patio area where we're proposing 40 feet. She did mention something about having this large gabled structure on the property, which, as I mentioned to you, I don't need to make it a gabled structure. I can cut the roof on the sides to convert it to what they call a hip, which would severely reduce the density of the home itself and the way it would feel to the side and rear neighbors. I'm not sure if that's what she was getting at when she said large gabled home. We could switch that off to a hip style home. The amount of space that we're talking about that we're over on the gross floor area is 300 square feet. So we don't feel it's a tremendous amount. If we were to, try to reduce the home, the first thing to go would be the garage, which, it'd be a shame, because we're trying to keep cars off driveways and in the home to, keep, cars off the street and keep the character of the neighborhood. But that's the only thing I would like to add. And, with that, I'll defer to whatever the board would like to recommend. Thank you.
All right, fine. Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
I've been raising my hand, but no one's asked me to comment, so I couldn't resist the chime in.
Who is speaking?
Who's speaking?
This is Manjeet Singh, and I don't live in the area, but I do have a question on the process. Since
I need your name. I need your address.
Manjeet Singh,
Please don't.
St. James.
No, spell it, please.
It's on the screen. M-A-H-I-J-I-T.
I don't see you on the screen, sir. What is your first and last name and your address, please?
M-A-H-I-J-I-T, and the last name is Singh, S-I-N-G-H. And I'm just curious.
And your address, please, sir?
St. James.
No.
9 Tide Mill Road, St. James.
I didn't hear that.
9 Tide Mill Road, St. James. And I just have a question, which is around the process, because I know that we're going to be talking about a home in the neighborhood soon. And the question I have is, Mr. O'Connell and the variance that they're requesting was around the size of the lot, whether or not the driveway, et cetera, is big or small, and the distance from the property. I'm curious to know the board's thoughts on, people are commenting around the height of the house and the size of the house, but wasn't that not part of the variance request, and the request was more around the property line, et cetera? So is it normal for someone to comment that your house is too big? If there was no variances and the house was still the same size, would that still be an issue? Because somebody wants to build a 3,000 square foot house and the rest of the house is a 2,000 square foot, that becomes an issue, even if the property lines were not an issue. So I haven't heard much comment around whether the variance from 40 to 30 feet or whatever it was, but people are commenting more around this couple that's trying to build a house and whether it fits their design and whether it appeals to them from their backyard. I mean, is that what the variance is about, or is it about the property lines? That was just my thought, because I think it's a little unfair when that's not the variance request.
You guys mind if I respond to that one?
Go right ahead, Tony.
Mr. Singh, one of the variances that they're requesting is called a floor area variance, which they're asking to take the size of the house, which is permitted at 30% to 34%, which is directly what they were commenting about. So when you talk about the size of the bulk of the house, that's why that code exists, is to keep structures to a certain size in an area, which is why those questions are being asked. I hope that helps you understand, but that is certainly a valid concern for neighbors on an application like this.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else? Anyone else?
No one has their hand up, Chairman.
All right, fine. Can I have a motion again to close the application?
So moved.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night.
In favor? The next case on the agenda is case number 18453, Kathy Canzaneri, 23 Rainbow Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Rainbow Drive and Reed Street. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 38-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, hi. Kathy Canzaneri, 23 Rainbow Drive, Smithtown, New York.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm sitting in also. I'm Robert Canzaneri, husband.
Okay. Fine. Would you like to tell us why you're here tonight?
To get a variance due to groundwater in the area,
All right.
to put in an in-ground pool.
All righty.
Yeah, we're told it would have just been a regular permit application to install this pool with the size and the area that we're taking up in the yard and where we're placing it. The only issue being when we had to do a bore test because of the groundwater in the area, and they hit water before 10 feet. Now, the pool we're requesting to put in is going to be 4 foot with the deep end only 6 foot. And we don't feel like it's going to impact anything at all. And there are many, many built-in pools in the area, including right next door, with no issue to anyone at all. So the only reason we're looking for this variance is because of that, the groundwater.
Groundwater. All right, fine. All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No questions.
No,
thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Chairman, I don't have anyone with their hand raised.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thank you, thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18454, Stephen Wild, Tide Mill Road, St. James. The location of the property, the north side of Tide Mill Road, 431 feet west of River Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 43,560 square feet to 21,693 square feet for a proposed 4,971 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling with attached 446 square foot side entry garage. To reduce the minimum front yard from 60 feet to 50 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 20 to 23% due to environmentally sensitive land, to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet, to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope higher than 15% or within the flood hazard zone.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to the planning department. As you can see from the diagram, plot plan drawn by Joe Neitzel, the architect, although the property meets the requirement of 1 acre zoning, almost half of it is environmentally sensitive, either due to depth of groundwater or steep slopes. So we've placed the house upland as far as we could, and the first variance that we need is the
I'm sorry,
Uh,
Mr.
Mr.
Tramarko.
Can you use the microphone, please? When you turn
I'm
away, we
Oh.
can't.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right, I don't know where I left off, but, so you can.
The first variance.
Okay, if you look at the plot plan that's up on the board, you can see that almost half the property is covered with either steep slopes or a depth of groundwater, both considered environmentally sensitive land. We do have the area of at least 43,560, but is 21,693. We're proposing a 4,971 square foot two-story dwelling with a 446 square foot side entry garage. The other variance, the second variance, is that we have to move the house forward, actually 10 feet forward, so that we have an area of our backyard before we enter into the depth of groundwater and the real steep slopes. The third variance is to increase the lot area ratio from 20% to 23%. Again, this is due to the environmentally sensitive land because the property not only has depth of groundwater, but it slopes down, as you can see, to Mill Creek, which I believe is a tributary of the Nisququag.
A tributary of the Nisququag?
Of the Nisququag River,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Variance to permit the environmentally sensitive land to be altered. Again, it's depth of groundwater. The environmental department of the town has asked us to do a depth of groundwater just landward of the wetlands line, which we will be doing. However, where the house is, and again, we're gonna have to do another test hole for cesspools and so forth, but that's very much upland, and we don't feel it have any effect on depth of groundwater at that site where the house is. The final variance, 10 foot from.
I'm sorry. The final variance.
Is to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope greater than 15% within the flood hazard zone. So again, if you just look at the map that the architect drew, the site plan, you can see if you look at the grading, it goes down rather rapidly to Mill Creek. And this is basically the only place where we can locate the house. So again, we have plenty of ground, but because of both environmentally sensitive ordinances in the town, we have to place the house 10 foot closer to the street. The difference between 50 and 60, I don't believe would be visible by people riding by. The properties on either side are already improved. So we're asking the board for its favorable consideration.
I'm sorry, I lost you at favorable consideration, Mr. Tramarko.
Is it because of turning, or I'm sorry? We don't believe it will be an impact on the neighborhood. There are houses all around. This neighborhood is strictly residential. We don't believe that the variances are substantial. As you can see, they're necessitated only because of the environmentally sensitive land. The benefit, can it be achieved by an alternative? Even if we were to build a smaller house, we would still have the same situation with the front yard setback, which is important in order to give us some backyard that doesn't encroach on sensitive land. Does it have any adverse effect on the environment? Not where we're placing the house. There are rules, as this board well knows, with respect to use or non-use of environmentally sensitive land. And that portion of our property that goes down to Mill Creek is basically required to be left in its natural state. Was the difficulty self-created? We haven't built anything yet. I believe this is the last parcel in that area to be built, and we're asking the board for its favorable consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Oh, thank you.
No,
Thank you.
no, thank you.
Planning, do you have any questions?
Well, thank you.
No? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Yes, Chairman, I have someone up with their hand raised, and I just have your phone number, 631-747-5190. So if you don't mind stating your name for the record.
And you can talk.
Okay.
Sorry, good evening. Good evening. Hi, this is Fred Schrank, located at 4 Tide Mill Road.
I'm sorry,
And-
can you spell your last name, please?
Absolutely. It is SCHRANK,
And what was the address again?
4 Tide Mill Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I wanted to basically see if I could submit through email an objection to or a couple of possible objections to the variances here. That would be right. To allow time.
Why don't you just state them right now?
Well, I kind of wanted to lay it out a little more on in the email format. I listed an email address. So I wanted to see if you would give me a little more time on that. Thank you.
We're not going to be able to close it then.
I'll try to be as
Mr. Chairman, can I be heard on that?
Certainly.
As the board well knows, there was notice sent around pursuant to our town's ordinance. The gentleman had time to prepare whatever objections he may have had to the application. I agree with the possible request of the chairman that he can voice his objections now, but to hold this hearing up and not close it, because then I would have to answer those objections, whatever they may be, and it would just be holding up an application for no good reason. Thank you.
Well, the reason I wanted to request a little more time, and when I say a little, I literally mean maybe a day, is because they call it environmentally sensitive land for a reason, and I would like to look into something a little more further that I already had started.
At the beginning, we stated that the procedures are, the cases will be heard in the order they're advertised.
Correct.
The applicant presents his case. The board asks any questions that they may have. Then the planning department asks their questions, and then we open it up, and then we close the hearing. Once the hearing closed, no further information will be accepted on the case.
Okay, well, it was my mistake that I didn't fully understand the request on the variance that was sent out, and I apologize for that. And like I said, I didn't need much time, and I was just going to email something.
Well, again, can you give us a synopsis of what you're going to be asking? Can you?
Sure. It would be more related to the environment.
Yeah.
Since it connects to the Nisqually River, and everything, it's a really beautiful area. I just wanted to kind of put together a little more detail than I have right now.
If you could hold on for a minute, I'd like to ask our counsel, Karen.
Yeah,
Sure,
Chairman,
absolutely.
if I may, the opposition or any objections needs to be stated either submitted before the meeting or presented during the meeting. So the matter, if there's any objections by this owner or anybody else, needs to be submitted at this meeting.
To my request, I'm sorry, to my recollection, there's probably a few people who object on this call. So, you know, if they can hear me, please, you know,
Those
let your
objections
voice
can be
be heard.
raised. Excuse me, those objections can be raised during this hearing, as the chairman has stated. There can't be additional time granted to submit objections after the meeting because the hearing, the case will be closed. So if you're going to if you'd like to verbalize any of your objections or opposition, now is the time to do it.
Okay, well, then I will leave it with, I simply object because of the environment. I would like to go into more detail. I understand your rules and I don't want to, you know, go outside of that. I appreciate that. I'm sure there are other people on this call who as I was informed, also object to this variance. So I just hope that they, you know, they too are, you know, make their voices heard. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Chairman, I don't have anyone with their hand up. I will take the moment. Oh, I do. Great. Before I call on William and Barbara, I'm just going to remind everybody to use the raise hand button, which is on the lower right-hand corner. It looks like a smiley face. You got to push that button, and then you got to push the button that says raise hand. So essentially, you're using two buttons. With that, I'm going to call on William and Barbara Starkey. I hope I pronounced that correct. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Correct. I am William Stark. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay, I'll move closer. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is William Stark. I live on 3 Tide Mill Road, the adjacent property just east of the property in question.
What is the spelling of your last name?
My spelling is Starke, William and Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. I vehemently object to any variances on this beautiful property. All of us in this neighborhood have had our homes built according to the town standards, and to violate the town standards to me is ridiculous. The environment here is beautiful. It's very sensitive, and all of our houses more than comply to the rules. And you know, they're asking to build a house on literally 1/2 of the acreage that is required. It, you know, the acreage is the environmentally sensitive land is according to what I'm reading, better than half of the property that is required for the house to be built on. You know, it's totally ridiculous, and I vehemently object to this.
All right. Barbara, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I agree. I agree with my husband. We worked long and hard to have this house, you know, and we really would like to keep it the way it is, and just be thankful for that we can have it that way. We put a lot of time and energy and work into this area, and we really love it, and we would really like to keep it. I mean, we followed all the rules, and you know, I feel like we should be really addressed carefully.
All right.
Sir, I have our neighbor sitting next to us here, Joanne Sweeney, which we put up on that bullet that was there, and she would like to say something at this time. Would that be okay?
That will be fine.
Okay, here it is.
Could she introduce herself, please? State your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please.
Sure. Joanne Sweeney, Sweeny. I live at 2 Tide Mill Road.
Okay.
This street is absolutely gorgeous. All the homes are, you know, acre or more and well maintained. And I think it's ridiculous to think that somebody could just come in and build a house on, like Bill said, half the property required. We've all done what we have to do. We pay taxes up the gazoo that, you know, allows us to live here. And I just think that if you want to build a house where you can build a house. And there's too many variances they're requesting. And I think it's out of control. Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Chairman, I have no one with their hand up.
Hello? Oh, no.
Hello, I'd like to, I can't raise my hands. I can't seem to find the button.
Okay.
We would like to talk.
All right, hold on, everybody. Let me get Lisa first, and then Ellen, I'll call on you afterwards, okay?
Okay. My name's Lisa Sapphire. I actually have my father with me.
Lisa.
Yes.
Could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please?
Sure. My name's Lisa Sapphire, Saffeir. My address is 42 Clayton Drive, Dix Hills, New York, 11746.
Okay, and you said there's somebody else with you that'd like to speak?
Yes, I have my father on the phone with me. His name is Stephen Wild. He's the owner of the property.
Okay. All right.
Dad, can you speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. The only real variance that is required to build this house is the 10-foot reduction in front yard, according to the zone, which is 60 feet, and we want 50 feet. And the reason for that is that we've designed a house that's very wide in the front because we're so limited with depth. The rear 100 feet of the property is environmentally sensitive. So we don't want to build anything in the environmentally sensitive portion. We're just looking to reduce the front yard 10 feet. The house to the west of it, Peter Velez, built a house there, I don't know, maybe it's 7 years ago or something. He got the same variance. So we're in keeping with the house to the left, which is the west, and the one to the east, I built many years ago for people, but I don't remember if we got a variance there, to be honest with you. The problem is, if this variance was not granted, the house would only be 22 feet deep. 22 foot is nothing, you know, for the in keeping with the houses that are presently on the street, on the cul-de-sac or on the street. So we need this 10-foot variance to be able to build 32 foot deep, which is not a lot in depth on a fairly large house. So that is the primary variance that's required. The rest is just because of, it's not impacting the environment at all. It's just going from 22% to 23% with air because of slopes. And every property on that street has slopes. On this side of the street, the north side, it's going down to the pond, and on the other side, their slopes go up. So it's all in keeping with the area. Thank you for letting me speak.
All right, thank you. Does your daughter want to add anything? She introduced herself.
No, that's fine. I was just going to speak about the 10 foot. So the 10 foot variance that's to the side all we're asking for is the same treatment that was granted to our next door neighbor.
Okay, fine, thank you.
No problem.
Is there anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Yes, Chairman, I have Ellen. I don't have your last name, so I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself. Give her a second to hit that microphone button. There you go.
My husband is going to speak for both of us.
Okay, first of all, could you introduce yourself?
Yes.
State your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Dr. Martin Hauptman, Hauptman. I built the first house on Tide Mill Road when there was no Tide Mill Road. Number 1 Tide Mill is my address. I object to the setback variance. This is the big house, probably going to be the biggest house in area on the street, and bring it closer to the road, closes in the road, closes in the views from all the neighbors on either side. And this is kind of a pastoral street because of the creek and the ponds, and we like to keep it that way. So I strongly object to the setback variance. The rest, as Mr. Wild said, are fine, but not the setback.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hopman. Anyone else like to speak on this application?
Chairman, I have no one else with their hand up.
Okay. Mr. Tramarko, would you like to come back and answer some of their concerns?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you know, but Steve Wild probably built a couple of thousand houses over the years, and this is one of his last properties. And I'm glad he was able to tune in, so to speak. But in any event, just to answer a couple of things, Mrs. Stark's property goes down and slopes just as radical or non-radical as Mr. Wild's property. So there's no difference between the slope in Mrs. Stark's property. And I'm going to guess that many years ago, we didn't have the steep slope ordinance that's been around probably for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years. And they recently revised it and changed part of it to 25% respect to some areas of the steep slopes. But all of the properties on Tide Mill Road on that side slope down to the water. On the other side, which Mr. Wild brought up, and he's right about that. I did that variant for Mr. Velez probably longer than 7 or 8 years ago, but we needed the same type of variances in order to build a house. So, you know, when Steve Wild says the only real variance is the setback, he's right, because in many areas they don't have steep slope requirements. And it's kind of a fiction in the sense that you can build on the side of a mountain if you wanted to. And then in the town of Smithtown, we, or the powers that be, decided, well, we want to eliminate building on steep slopes. So that's what caused us.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tramarko, when you turn away, it cuts out. So that's what caused us.
That's what caused Wild to ask for the 10-foot variance. And I said before, if you're walking down the street, you're not going to know the difference between 50 feet or 60 feet. Every other house in the area is built up. They're there. And we should have the opportunity to build our house basically in conformity with what we did next door and following the same rules that are enacted by the town. Every time we have a slope, we have to come in and ask for a variance, but it's not a variance that we're asking that we want to put a house on a piece of property that's, you know, on a half acre when it's truly an acre. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration, and thank you for the time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tramarko. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
I'm sorry, Chairman. There are, I still have hands up. I hate to interrupt. I think it's, it might be the same person that spoke twice. I don't know if you want me to double check quick.
At the beginning, everybody gets one opportunity to speak.
Understood. Okay.
So if they spoke already, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one is actually I believe the individual who is the applicant.
He already spoke.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right. Again, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
I believe we already have a motion. I think it was seconded as well.
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18455, Marie and Nathan Goldstein, Tammy Court, Kings Park. The location of the property, the south side of Tammy Court, 280 feet east of Tony Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard from 75 feet to 42 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area from 25% to 26% for proposed 347 square foot first floor addition.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Hi, this is Marie Goldstein, 9 Tammy Court.
Good evening.
Hi.
And you're here tonight, Marie, because?
We would like to put an addition on the back of our house. We're here for a variance.
And you want to go from 75 feet to 42 feet?
Yes.
Okay. And you're increasing the gross floor area 25 to 26%?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to that, or that's it?
That's about it. Thank you for hearing this tonight.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No questions.
No questions.
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Chairman, I have no one with their hand raised.
All right, thank you. With that said, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you and good night.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next two cases are two adjacent lots. Would you like to open both hearings simultaneously?
Yes.
All right then. The next two cases on the agenda are case number 18456 and case number 18457. Joseph Capiello, 491 Veterans Memorial Highway, Comac. The location of the two lots are 370 feet and 420 feet east of White Oak Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 21,780 square feet to 19,737 square feet for lot number 1, and for lot number 2 from 27,780 square feet to 19,627 square feet. to reduce the minimum lot frontage at the setback line from 100 feet to 50 feet for both lots.
100 feet to?
50 feet.
Yes.
Reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 11 feet for both lots. Reduce total side yards from 34 feet to 22 feet for both lots for proposed 2,235 square foot, two-story single-family dwellings on both lots.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, excuse me, this is Steve Gargiulo. I'm going to recuse myself from these cases.
All right, fine, Steve. All right. I believe Mr. Tramarko, you're up.
I'm up. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tramarko. I represent the applicant. I've submitted affidavits of posting and mailing to the planning department. As you can see, and I agree, we might as well do both together because they're adjacent proposed lots. If you look at the, not the survey so much, but the Google map, it'll indicate to you that immediately adjacent to the west are two similar lots with houses on 50-foot frontages, which go back almost 400 feet. This is on Veterans Highway, as you know, and since it's such a deep lot, we're not going to put our houses as close to the road as you see the houses on the similar lots to the west. We asked the board for its favorable consideration. Again, they indicate that it's...
Mr. Tramarko, when you turn away, we can't hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the lots are almost 400 feet. And there'd be no neighbors that would be negatively impacted by these proposals. As you can see, the lots to the west are already on 50-foot wide parcels. These are two filed map lots, so it doesn't require a subdivision with the town. They've existed for many, many, many years. And at the time, you could have bought 150-foot lot and built a house because it was prior to the zoning that required 100-foot wide lots in R21 zone. Will not have any adverse effect on the environment. The properties are just shy of 20,000 square feet. So we would need to either get a half of a credit from a sanitary flow or make an application to the Suffolk County Board of Health to their Board of Review. Each lot is about 300 square feet shy of the 20,000 that's required under the Board of Health rules. We don't feel that it would have an adverse effect on the environment. Again, the property is almost 20,000 square feet. It meets the, almost meets the requirements of Suffolk County Health, and we're prepared to make our application to the Health Department or ask for a variance of the 20,000 square foot requirement. We don't believe that the application is substantial, and again, we don't feel it would affect the surrounding neighbors, as the two neighbors immediately to the west are on 50-foot lots. Is the variance self-created? We didn't build anything yet. We just like to conform to the area. Again, Vets Highway is, as you know, is a very busy road, but we feel we can accommodate the people who live there by setting their house further back than the normal requirement. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. If the board has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Oh, thanks.
No, thank you.
All right, planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a few comments for the board. If you, Matt, can we bring up the aerial that shows the 2 lots and the adjoining lots, please? Okay, thank you. So if the board could take a look at the screen, you can see that immediately to the east of the highlighted lot, there is an existing home. I believe that's where Mr. Cappiello lives, or he owns the home on that property. It would appear, if you look at that property to the east and the lot in question, that when the home was constructed, and I don't know when the home was constructed, but it certainly would appear that when it was constructed, whoever had the home built owned both the large lot that the home is on to the east and the large lot to the west that Mr. Tremarco is proposing to put the 2 homes on. Be as it may, if the board were considering looking at the application favorably, it certainly does appear that the existing home and some of the structures that are on that property would need variances for setbacks of side yards. So we would just like the board to be aware of that.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I have no one with their hands raised.
Okay, fine, thank you. Mr. Tremarco, any remarks?
Well, in answer to Mr. Donadio's statement, it is true that Mr. Cappiello owns the property to the east, and if it were necessary, we would, of course, apply for variances. I can see what he's saying. The house is pretty much on the line. But again, it's properties which Mr. Cappiello owns. No one is affected except him. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Marco.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18458, John M. Fiore, 11 Oak Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property, the west side of Oak Avenue, 206 feet north of Lawrence Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 35 feet to 9 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 2 feet for an existing 473 square foot rear porch and 160 square foot shed.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Hi, how are you? My name is John M. Fiore. Last name is Fiore. I am at 11 Oak Avenue, Smithtown.
All right, John. Tell us why you're here tonight, please.
I'm looking for a variance for the rear porch and the shed, and I would like to have my architect speak on my behalf, please.
Oh, okay, fine, thank you.
His name is Joseph Gabriel.
Okay. Joseph, are you there?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello, Joseph?
Yes.
Good. Could you state your name, spell your last name, and give the address for the record, please?
Yes, of course. So Joseph Gabriel, Gabriel. Address is 4250 Veterans Highway, Holbrook, New York, 11741.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fiore has this rear, what you see on the drawing, it appears to be a structure. It is open on all sides. It is simply a roof over patio. It's finished so that it can be used in warmer weather as a sunshade bar area, as an adjunct to his existing pool. And it is 400 square feet. It does encroach into the yard, but it is not a huge encroachment by some standards, in that most of the yard is still open. As far as the shed is concerned, the shed forms a barrier, which would be a fence if the shed were elsewhere. It's tucked away. It's visually not a problem, and it doesn't encroach on the view of the house in terms of the rest of the neighborhood. So we would ask that you consider this favorably. It is in fact already there, which is a different issue. It was there before I got involved with Mr. Fiore. So that's the view you see there is the shed from the yard side, not from the street side. And I don't know if you have a photo of the roof structure, but you can see there it is open on all sides. It's 4 columns. Now, as to the depth of the columns and the environmentally sensitive area, there is a pool in this area that goes deeper than these footings would go. So they don't pose a particularly interference in the groundwater, and that they're no deeper than the pool and should pose no problem.
All right. Thank you.
Take any questions?
I will ask. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Oh, thank you.
No,
thank you.
Planning? Planning?
I was muted. No, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I have no one with their hands raised.
All right, fine. Thank you. With that said, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Good night.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18459, William Kruger, 8 Bruce Lane, Kings Park. The location of the property, the north side of Bruce Lane, 129 feet east of Indian Head Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 15 feet for an existing 256 square foot sunroom.
Okay. Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, it's William Kruger. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can, William. Could you,
8 Bruce Lane, Kings Park.
okay, fine. Thank you.
Also here is Richard Bronchick for the applicant, 87 Rhoda Avenue, North Babylon, New York, 11703. The last name is Bronchick. Good evening.
You're going to be speaking on Mr. Kruger's behalf, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay, yes, we are trying to legalize a 14 by 18 rear addition. It's a Florida room. It has electric, but there's no heat. It's, as you know, it's a pie-shaped property, as you can see from the survey. And the rear yards obviously are slanted and reduces substantially the rear yard itself. The addition is barely visible, if at all, from the street, and with a 6-foot fence, trees and shrubbery, it does not invade the privacy of the neighbors, and in fact is barely visible to the neighbors. The addition's been there since 2007 without complaint, and in fact we have submitted 4 letters from neighbors, including one from each side of the property in support of the application. And that's basically it, unless you have any questions.
All right, fine. Thank you. I will ask. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that said, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
We'll move.
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve back on?
The next case on the agenda, case number 18376, Robert and Carol Van Dyke, 25 Chestnut Stump Road, Fort Salonga. The location of the property, the east side of Chestnut Stump Road, 324 feet south of Bernard Street. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum height of an accessory structure from 15 to 20 feet, to increase the square footage from 750 square feet to 960 square feet for a proposed detached garage.
All right, could I have the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I'm getting feedback. Do you hear it?
Yes.
Oh. Taken care of. Go ahead.
I represent the applicant. We've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to the planning department. Some time ago, I presented this application before the board, and the board was good enough to grant the variances for the height of the garage, as well as the square footage, which was 750 to 960 and 15 feet to 20 foot in height. However, the board decided to require us, or to condition the variance on us being further away from the side and I guess the rear yard than the 10-foot requirement, which we did meet. And I understand why the board did that. However, upon me discussing this with my client, he indicated that there were rather large trees in that particular area where if we moved the garage further away from the side yard, that we would have a significant loss of trees. I think you can see it in the 3 pictures that are on the screen now. These trees are of very large caliber, and they're very tall trees. So we asked the board to reconsider that part of their application, which conditioned us to move the garage further than the required side and rear yard, because of the fact that we would really have to destroy some beautiful trees in Mr. and Mrs. Van Dyke's rear yard. The property is only a half an acre, even though it's in an R43 zone, so that we're demoing the existing garage and moving it straight back where you see that the car facing us is basically where we would like to put the garage. And we wouldn't have to knock down any trees. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. We did the 5 criteria the last time. I won't bore you with them again, but we don't believe it's substantial. If you allow us that 10 feet, it'll preserve the trees and really not have any effect on the neighbors. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
I have a question. Mr. Tremarco, is this a reopen of the case that would require a 5-0 vote?
Yes, it's reopened.
Okay, thank you.
Just one concern.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Peter Kachajian. Backyard.
We haven't opened it up yet, sir.
I'm so sorry.
So it's my understanding, Mr. Tramarko, if this was granted, absolutely no trees would be taken down?
Well, I can't say absolutely, but there are no big trees in that area. And I'm looking at the overhead of the property, and in that area, and looking at the picture, there doesn't appear to be any trees where that car is. Looks like an SUV with racks on the roof. Yeah, there are no trees there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tramarko, did the applicant reach, or did you reach out to any of the neighbors to ask them whether they would rather have the trees or the garage next close to the fence?
No.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
No question.
No. Okay, planning?
My only question for Mr. Tramarko, as the chairman already asked, is if there would be any trees being taken down if the garage were constructed where the applicant proposes to put it.
And I thought I tried to answer it. It doesn't look like it from the pictures that we supplied, and these are the recent ones. I believe we sent them in just yesterday or the day before. An answer to Mr. Gargiulo's question, we did send around, as you well know, letters indicating what we were going to do. And I don't know if anybody is going to appear tonight to object to it, but they all had notice. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other thing from planning?
No, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on this application?
Yes.
Chairman, we have two individuals. I will call on Peter first.
Thank you.
Peter, could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please?
Yes, Peter Kachajian, and that's Kechejian.
All right, thank you.
And I'm behind Bob and Carol at 22 Breezy Hill Drive.
All right.
Yeah, Bob, very nice neighbors. They've taken and trimmed trees already, as have I on that property line. I don't think Bob has to take any more trees down. I was just concerned about the size of it against the property. I would like if, and Bob has planted to plant trees there so it blocks the size of the structure to our backyard. Is that reasonable?
That would be fine with the board. It's up to Mr. Tramarko and his client to.
Just to cover it. I can plant on my side as well to try to block the size of this probably beautiful garage.
All right, we'll ask Mr. Tramarko when he comes back. Anything else you'd like to put on the record?
No, just that, just some plantings there to help break up the size of the structure would be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Who's next?
I have just Bob on his phone.
Yeah. Right. Bob, could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please?
Bob Van Dyke, VanDyke. I'm the homeowner that's requesting the garage. Thank you for listening. Just two things to clarify. Absolutely no trees will be cut down by moving the garage. And the only thing I did have cut in the yard was anything dead branches. I had the trees they went up and just cut dead branches. Also, other than not wanting to lose any trees in my property, by moving the garage over and back as well, the neighbor behind me, Peter, and the neighbor to the side, 90% of it, they will not see the garage at all. As you can see in my pictures of all the dense growth. And I did plant all along my fence as well. I mean, we're gonna plant more, but we're waiting on the garage to be built so we know where to plant stuff. But I have no problem with planting stuff. And like I said, moving it over and moving it back, I'm sorry, Peter, I can't pronounce his last name, but he really will lose full view of the garage, as will my side neighbor and the other neighbor that is partially behind me. Thank you.
All right, fine, thank you. Is there anyone else like to be heard on this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have Michael Hall.
All right, Michael?
Yes, I also live behind Bob.
Michael, excuse me, can you just state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct? And give your address for the record, please.
Michael Hall, Hall, 24 Breezy Hill Drive.
Thank you.
I'm also right behind Bob. And I didn't realize till tonight how close it is to my property. And I apologize, the Zoom's going in and out. It's difficult to hear sometimes. Did you say, Bob, that you're gonna plant trees behind the garage that will cover the garage?
Well, we'll ask Mr. Tramarco when he comes back.
Okay. That was my question.
All right.
And will there be lights above the garage? Because there's lights in the backyard now. And I was just curious if they're going to be putting lights on top of the garage.
Oh, okay. Well, we will ask that also. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard on this application?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, fine. Mr. Tramarco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you've heard Mr. Van Dyke indicate that he will plant on the side and the rear wherever necessary. So it doesn't become an issue with us. We have no objection to doing the planting. It does make sense for him to build the garage and then, look at the space and see where in those that area the planting should be. And as far as lighting, I don't see that Mr. Van Dyke is going to put lighting on the back of his garage or on the side. I'm sure there'll be electric inside the garage, but certainly not on the neighbor's side or rear. If I'm wrong, Bob, you can correct me now.
Yes. May I speak?
Yes, you can.
Okay, just to address Mr. Hall, I'd like to let him know that the light that's on the existing garage will be gone when that gets knocked down. And there'll just be two small carriage lights on the front of the garage, totally nowhere near his property. They're just going to be fixtures, no spotlights of any form. And also, just so everyone understands too, if you look at the picture with the pickup truck in it, you'll see behind it to the left slightly a white 6-foot fence. To the right of that is Mr. Hall's property. As you can see, there are a good amount of trees there. And yes, I still have no problem putting more. I have the tree to the right, but it's very dense in that area. That's why also I was saying by moving it over and back, the neighbors really won't notice it. And I will do my very best to blend it in. I don't want it to look like an eyesore. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Tramarco?
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion? Excuse me. Is there anyone else out there that'd like to be heard?
No, Chairman.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18449, CTU Properties of New York, LLC, 64 Smithtown Boulevard, Smithtown. The location of the property is the southwest corner of Smithtown Boulevard and Shepard Lane. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 50 feet to 47 feet for a proposed first floor addition of 77 square feet and a 1,824 square foot second floor addition. To reduce the minimum distance for a retaining wall to a lot line from 5 feet to 1 foot for wall A. To reduce the minimum distance of a retaining wall to a lot line from 5 feet to 1 foot for wall B. To permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered for any slope greater than 15%. To reduce the minimum parking from 28 to 23 spaces. To reduce the minimum required truck loading spaces from 1 to 0. To reduce the front yard parking setback from 6 feet to 1 foot on Shepard Lane. To reduce the rear yard parking setback from 6 feet to 5 feet. To reduce the minimum driveway access within parking areas from 24 feet wide to 20 feet.
Good evening, Mr. Tramarko.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tramarko. I've submitted the affidavit of posting and mailing to the planning department. As you can see, this property was or is the inside parcel. There is an existing building on it, which we want to expand mostly upward, actually doubling the square footage of the building. The 3-foot setback is for a portico on the first floor, which is always good, you know, during rain and snow, to be able to be sheltered before you walk into the office. The owners of the property are accountants, and they were able to purchase the property that fronts on Shepard Lane and Smithtown Boulevard, and they propose to add it to the existing property in order to make the more viable use of the property. The piece on Shepard Lane was virtually useless until they came along and bought it, and they are using it solely for parking use. They're not encroaching the building onto that piece. The variance to permit environmentally sensitive land, again, you know, we see that all the time in any kind of hilly property.
Any kind of
hilly property.
Thank you.
Hill property, I'm sorry. To reduce the minimum number of parking spaces from 28 to 23, we don't think that's excessive, given the fact that this is all office building use, especially with accountants, half the time they're out in the field seeing clients at the client's place of business. The truck loading space generally is not necessary for this type of use, and we don't think it's necessary here. Reduce the front parking setback from 6 to 1 feet on 1 foot on Shepard Lane. Again, you can see it has no adverse effect on any neighbor. Obviously, that setback fronts on Shepard Lane, and it's all for parking and drainage. Reduce the rear yard parking setback from 6 to 5 feet. Again, you know, you can see that from the site plan submitted. Reduce minimum driveway access from within parking areas from 24 to 20 feet. it's necessary because of the size and shape of the property. This will be a great improvement to the area. The existing building has been there for many years. It was a law office. The applicants here certainly are beautifying the building. It'll look like it will be a new building and be a benefit to the community. And not to mention the fact that probably their taxes will double, and that certainly is a benefit to the town. We don't think the variance is substantial, given the fact that our clients did buy the piece of property on Shepard Lane. It was only about 40 feet wide, so it was virtually useless to anybody else. And it was vacant for many years. So here they bought it. They're going to improve it if the board so allows it, and produce virtually a new building on the property. We don't believe that the variances are substantial, given the fact that this is a business area, actually Smithtown Boulevard is changing, and as we speak, there are different alterations and new buildings going up all along the Smithtown Boulevard area. So we don't feel it'll have any environmental impact. If there is any necessity for a sanitary flow right, we're still checking that with the health department. We are prepared to purchase it. I think our estimation at best would be a half a credit if it's necessary. Obviously, we have to apply to the health department to find that out. Is the variance self-created? Is it a self-created hardship? No. We haven't done anything yet other than buy the property on Shepard Lane, which is an improvement to the entire area, as it was vacant and a dumping ground for many years. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments for you. First, if I could ask Matt to please bring up the plan that planning had prepared for the applicant. Thank you. So the applicant came to planning some time ago, looking to develop the parcel further than it already has been. And we did our best to try to work with them to come up with a good parking scheme that would better fit the setbacks and preserve as much of the existing trees and vegetation as was there. You can see on the screen that we did come up with a parking configuration that is different than what's being proposed. There is a difference of about 3 spaces in total between the applicant's proposal and what planning proposed. The advantage of using our plan as opposed to theirs is that it does preserve a lot of trees and a lot of vegetation, which is basically screening the residential properties behind the existing building, and would also screen the proposed second story from them as well, and provides the required setbacks for the parking, and overall just works better for that particular site.
All right, fine. Thank you.
Blaze, the only problem with that is we couldn't grant a more significant variance than was asked for. Is it possible to draw it with land bank parking spaces so we don't have to hold the meeting open?
That is a possibility. We can look into it and see what we can come up with. I can't tell you right now whether or not we can or can't. It does look like there is some there's some ability in the, I guess that would be considered the southwestern portion of the proposed parking, where it could be tweaked and still remain in conformity and, you know, bring the parking up to a more desired level.
Well, I'm just thinking in terms of the law, we can't grant it to 18, we can grant it to 20.
That is correct.
Or 23. So I think it makes sense to see if you can, well, we would need to know tonight, otherwise we'd have to hold the meeting open.
If Mr. Tremarco has no objection and would be all right with an adjournment, we can certainly work on it and bring it back perhaps by the next meeting.
I'm looking at the your overlay of the site plan. You didn't reduce the size of the building, I don't think.
No.
And so it's really the parking configuration. I think Mr. Tanzi's suggestion is a good one. Obviously, you can't give a greater variance than what we applied for. So I'm going to say that if we can adjourn it to the next hearing, we'll have our architect meet with planning and try and come up with a solution that will satisfy both the planning department and my clients. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Yes.
Whoever just, oh, is that Beatrice?
Yes.
Okay, Beatrice, go ahead. I'm just gonna, just state your full name for the record and your address.
So Beatrice is my mom. 82 Shepard Lane.
I'm sorry, you cut out. What is your name, ma'am?
My name's Joy. My mom is Beatrice. We both live at 82 Shepard Lane, Nesconset, and last name's Sauer, S like Sam, A-U-E-R.
You just shut your.
Can I speak?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. So that's all right. Mr. Trimarco mentioned that, you know, it was just nature and considered it a waste of space. I don't consider nature to be a waste. And I'm concerned about with the drawing that's presented now, with there being a wall there up against the street. Is there going to be a strip of vegetation there? Or is it just going to be a wall and then parking lot? And then my other question is, there are no plans to put an entrance on Shepard Lane, correct?
No.
Okay. And if they were going to expand the building again, would there be another meeting like this to talk about like the size of the building being bigger towards Shepard Lane?
No. No.
No, there wouldn't be?
There would be, if there was a proposed change.
Okay, okay. I mean, the second drawing that you guys posted with the alternative with the more vegetation, you know, just as someone that lives on the block, I do prefer, you know, a little more natural look. You know, I'm someone that's concerned. I worked with the environment for the 20 some odd years of my life. And I just like to see nature as opposed to a parking lot.
All right, fine.
If you developed as opposed to just a lot.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
That's my mom, Beatrice.
Okay.
Okay, would it be developed as opposed to just a lot that it is right now? Right now, it's just a lot, like they said, a dumping ground for, you know.
It'll be turned into parking.
With the new proposal. So there'd be a retaining wall right next to Shepard Lane?
I believe there's a proposal by the applicant, but planning had put together an alternative, and the applicant is going to take the alternative back to their architect to see if that accomplishes their goals, which at first glance it seems to. In that case, they would preserve more of the natural area.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, Chairman, I have Anita DiStefano.
Yes, hi, good evening. It's
Good evening.
ANITA DISTEFANO, and I live on 93 Shepard Lane, Wisconsin.
All right.
So a couple of things I just would like to address. Mr. Tremarco said that it would be an improvement to the neighborhood. I don't believe that tearing down trees and creating a parking lot is an improvement. It is a small piece of nature, and I think that we need to preserve that in our town. He also addressed that on Smithtown Boulevard, that it's changing and that there's new structures going up. I don't see that. I don't know what he's referring to. In fact, I see a lot of abandoned buildings or buildings for sale. So expansion is not necessarily needed. But before he said those comments, I did want the board to know if the board had addressed an impact on the traffic situation at this corner. If the building or the business expands, there would be more cars coming in and out. And it's a very dangerous part of Smithtown Boulevard. If you've done a study there, across the street is a 7-Eleven. The road curves and there's a dip in it, and there's quite often accidents, and it's very difficult already turning onto this side of Shepard Lane, whether you're going towards 347 or from it. So I don't know. I just wanted to know if the board or if the planning committee had done any type of traffic study.
Right. No. I'm not aware of any traffic study done in this area. Let me defer that to Mr. Donadio in the planning department. Blaze, are you aware of any?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman. If that's something that the board feels it wants information on, we could certainly request that from the applicant, but it was not an issue that came up in any previous meetings.
Okay. And also, the final thing, that I think that would be an important issue to look at before we expand the business on this corner. You could even go back into history of all the close calls and accidents that have taken place. It looked from the other plans that you had put up where you actually showed the greenery, that the parking lot is actually going to be 1 foot off of Shepard Lane. Is that correct?
Are you referring to the plan that's on the screen now or the previous plan?
This plan that I'm looking at now.
Okay, the plan that's on the screen right now is the plan that the planning department prepared for the applicant. And you can see that along Smithtown Boulevard and along Shepard Lane, the parking is set back at the required 6 feet.
Oh, it is 6 feet. Okay, because I was just looking at the paper where it said to reduce it from 6 to 1, and I think that that would be really unacceptable for Shepard Lane, for the corner there.
Okay, yeah, that's what the applicant is proposing.
Okay. All right, so those are my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else out there that'd like to be heard on the application?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No? All right. Mr. Tremarco?
I'll defer to the adjournment at this point.
You think you can be ready by February 23rd, or would you rather March 9th?
I think the 23rd. If I find, I'll check tomorrow, and if there's any problem with that, I will let planning know immediately.
All right.
But we'd like to continue.
All right, so this case will be adjourned to our next meeting, which is February 23rd. All right, thank you.
Is this where we were going to take a break, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we are. It's my understanding that the next application will be rather lengthy. So we'd like to take a 5-minute break before we start. Thank you. Then if planning has any questions, planning would ask their questions. Once planning is done, we will open it up to the general public. Everybody gets one opportunity to speak. Once everybody is done, we'll bring the applicant back in to answer your concerns, and then the case will be closed. All right? So with that said, Blaze, you want to read it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and just to let everyone know, the advertisement is rather lengthy, so please excuse me if I pause once or twice while reading it into the record. The next case on the agenda, case number 18448, ADT Real Estate Holding, LLC.
I'm off.
Excuse me?
Hello?
Hello?
It's Bill Valentine. I think I'm went off on the.
We can hear you, Bill. You're good.
You're fine, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Town Line Road and Pulaski Road in Kings Park. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variance of a standard to permit a building to exceed the maximum gross floor area ratio of the LI zoning district, to increase the maximum FAR from 42% to 69% for a proposed 100,000 square foot mini storage warehouse. A variance of a standard to permit exterior building materials not to have flat earth tone finishes. A variance of a standard to permit storage unit doors to be visible from a public street. And of the variances that any wall higher than 1 story, which is visible off-site, shall be enhanced by providing relief, such as pilasters, corbelled cornices, or similar ornamentation. A variance of a standard that no fence shall be permitted in the required front yards. A variance to reduce the required parking from 200 stalls to 30 stalls. A variance to permit a 6-foot fence in the required front yard on Pulaski Road. A variance to permit a 6-foot fence in the required front yard on Town Line Road. A variance to reduce the side yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet for an accessory building. To reduce the required number of truck loading stalls from 3 to 0. To permit a 12-foot high retaining wall in the required front yard on Pulaski Road. To increase the height of a retaining wall from 4 feet to 12 feet on Pulaski Road. To permit a 6-foot fence on top of a 12-foot retaining wall. To increase the height of a fence and retaining wall from 6 feet to 18 feet. To increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 12 feet along the south side of the property. To permit an 8-foot high berm in the required front yard on Town Line Road. To alter environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes greater than 15%. To permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25%. To increase the number of wall signs from 1 to 2. To increase the height of 2 wall signs from 15 feet to 24 feet. To increase the square footage of a ground sign from 32 square feet to 80 square feet. A special exception to permit outdoor storage in the LI zoning district. A variance of a special exception standard to permit outdoor storage not on the same lot as the principal use. A variance of a special exception standard to permit outdoor storage to exceed the gross floor area. A variance to allow the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes greater than 15%. To permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25%, and a variance to increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 12 feet along the south property line.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to the planning department. Given the length and the number of variances requested, with the board's permission, I'd like to take them one at a time. I'll be brief, but I think it's the only way that we can put some order into the application. So beginning with the first variance, we're asking to increase the FAR from 42% to 69% for a proposed 100,000 square foot mini storage warehouse. We'd like to bring out at the outset that the size of the mini storage warehouse is directly related to the cost effectiveness of what you build there. In other words, the cost of the we're building 100,000 square foot building.
100,000 square foot
building. We're building a 100,000 square foot building. The cost of building that building is $10 million. The land that we're putting it on, parcel A, the cost is about 2.5 million. Now, if you factor in the taxes, which we've checked with the town tax assessor, the revenue generated for taxes will be $250,000 per year. So it's not feasible for the applicant to build a lesser size building. It's not, it doesn't make economic sense to do that. At the end, I will get into the different uses that are much more onerous than what we propose to the board. I think although recently the town board changed one of the requirements of mini storage warehouses to allow a third story, basically. But the average, the FAR of the 42%, which is mandated under our ordinance, is far less than the average of of mini storage warehouses throughout the county of Nassau and Suffolk. In fact, the average floor area ratio of most of the mini storage warehouses on the island is at least 75% or 80%. And again, why do they allow that in other towns? The reason being that everybody knows who is in the mini storage warehouse business and have reviewed the existing storage warehouses that the size of the building does not generate the amount of parking that is required under the statute. So, and I'll get to it as we move further down. The variance of the standard to permit exterior building materials not to have flat earth tone finishes. I spoke to my clients today. I spoke to the architect and I spoke to the engineer, who are both viewing this meeting tonight, and I probably will call on them later. And they said they were very amenable to using earth tone flat colors. The only area where the same is not conforming is a red band around the building. Basically, is the kind of a logo that the company that is franchising this operation to my client requires. Um, Variance of a standard to permit a storage unit door to be visible from the public street. Well, we have to consider the following. There'll be no exits or entrances from and to this property from Pulaski Road. As a matter of fact, the property, as it was formerly a sand pit and a concrete mixing plant, which had many years of sand mining. So on the Pulaski Road side, you're not going to see the building, number one. And when we get to the retaining wall on that side, again, you'll see that although the retaining wall is a high wall and there's a fence atop the wall, it's all hidden from view as the property is located below the elevation of Pulaski Road. But I'll get to that further later. Variance of the standard to permit the unit doors to be visible from a public street. So nothing is visible from Pulaski. However, from Town Line, we have to put doors in. However, we are proposing to put a berm and landscaping, trees and bushes, mostly or all evergreens. So it will adequately screen the area. So somebody riding along Town Line Road is not going to see a bunch of doors. When you get to the entrance, yes, there'll be some viewing, but it'll be minor in comparison. And more importantly, the Pulaski Road side, the side that on the northern side of the property is residential in nature, that will not be seen at all. The building that will not be seen at all by the residents of that area. The standard that no fence shall be permitted in the required front yards. Well, when you have a wall that's 12 feet high, you better put a fence on top of it solely for safety reasons. These fences that we propose are generally known as estate fences. They look like, I think they're made of aluminum, but they're wrought iron, they're black. I mean, they're made of aluminum, they look like wrought iron, and they're black bars. So you can see right through them. And the reason why you can see through them is, God forbid, if somebody tries to climb over a fence that is opaque, they don't know what's on the other side. Here, obviously, you can see right through it, and you'll know that you better not climb over the fence. However, in front of that fence, there'll be landscaping, there'll be trees, there'll be bushes to camouflage the fencing. But we need that fencing solely for the safety of anybody who may, by chance, wander on the property. So that's why we're asking for the 6-foot fence and reduce the minimum front yard on Pulaski Road. But again, it's not something that's going to be visible from Pulaski Road nor from the neighbors to the north. On Town Line Road, the same thing. Not only are we putting a berm and we're planting on top of the berm, we're also asking for permission to put a 6-foot estate fence. But that 6-foot estate fence will be within the berm on the applicant side of the property and not visible basically from Town Line Road. The variance to reduce required parking stalls from 200 to 30 stalls. Well, I think there's been a number of studies with respect to parking for mini storage warehouses. And in fact, this board over the years have granted substantial, or I should say substantially looking or appearing variances such as this one. So when you look at 200 stalls to 30 stalls, you say, oh my God, what's going on here? But the 200 stalls were really relevant to different light industrial uses and not relevant to this use. And I'm going to ask later on for, I believe it's our engineer, Mr. Alward, to talk about that a little bit. Variance to reduce minimum truck loading spaces from 3 to 0. Well, as we all know, in a mini storage warehouse situation, most of the time you drive up to the closest door to your unit, you unload, and you drive away. It's not something like you would have an electronics light industrial factory there where you had truck deliveries every day. So truck loading spaces, again, are really for other light industrial uses and not meant and or not needed with respect to mini warehouse use. Again, the variance to permit a 12-foot high retaining wall in the required front yard of Pulaski Road. Well, the retaining wall in the front yard on Pulaski is lower than the road. It will not be seen from Pulaski. If you can imagine, from the inside of the property, yes, you can see the wall, and that's part of the design of the property, some of which, or most of it, caused this type of application and variances because the property was dug out. Even though it's on a slope, it was dug out many years ago, I guess, to supply sand to the Transit Mix cement company. The 12-foot high retaining wall is also an increase of the height of the retaining wall from 4 feet to 12 feet. Again, it is the same variance that we talked about a couple of minutes ago. Variance to permit a 6-foot fence atop a 12-foot high retaining wall. Again, I mentioned it previously, when you have a retaining wall that high, even though it can't be seen from Pulaski, if someone were to walk into the property, eventually they would come to where this wall is, and we need that 6-foot high estate fence on top of the wall in order to protect anybody who randomly decided to walk through the property. So this estate fence will be there, and it will be a see-through fence. I believe they're not called slats, the bars, I guess, in the fence are about 4 foot apart, would not allow anyone, even a child, to squeeze through. This, again, as I said, is an estate fence. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. You've seen them on, I guess, rather expensive properties. And that's the way my clients felt they could not only protect the property, but if there was anywhere where anyone could see the fence, they wouldn't be looking at a chain link fence. They'd be looking at a very expensive estate type fence. Again, I said you can see through it, so for safety reasons, you know what's on the other side when you come up to the fence. So one of the issues brought up many times is if you put a fence on a retaining wall, you better make sure that the people on the other side of that fence can see through it so that somebody doesn't decide to jump the fence. And that's the safety issue with respect to that. Again, on the south side of the property, we're talking about the north side. On the south side, we need a 12-foot retaining wall. Again, that'll be seen only by the people who go into the mini storage facility. And also, much of the steep slopes were man-made and created by former users of the property. We talked about the 8-foot berm in the required front yard of Town Line Road. The reason why we're asking for the berm is to further camouflage, if you will, or landscape on top of that berm, so that even from Town Line Road, which is an industrial area, if you go from the corner of Pulaski and you go south, it's all commercial, mostly heavy industrial properties. To permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes. Again, I've indicated that this was a project that I forget the name of the company that had it for years and years and years, and they apparently mined sand, used it for their cement business, and my client bought the property along with parcel B, which we'll talk about in a minute, and we feel that this, again, we'll get into it, is the best use for the community at large, as well as for my client. Again, variance to permit construction within 10 foot of slopes. There's a necessity. We have to do all these things in order to make this project work. We're asking for 2 wall signs because it is a corner property, and we're asking for a height increase from 15 to 24 feet. Again, it's a rather large facility, so we do need the viewability of people mostly going along Town Line Road. So we're asking for that variance. The ground sign from 32 to 80 feet will be at the entranceway, which is probably about 270 or 280 feet from the corner of Pulaski and Town Line. And we feel that that type of sign is necessary so that the public can see where the location is and how they get in and out of the subject property. And this is the only ingress and egress afforded to anyone who wants to use the facility for storage. Now we get into the special exception for outdoor storage in the Long Island and the LI zoning district. Well, parcel B is to be used for truck storage. Um, the board has allowed this many times, especially for car dealers who, at first, um, the requirements for car dealers, and I think they're still in effect, are the storage area can only be 3 times the size of the building. I think we've probably done over the years 10 or 15 variances, increasing the amount of storage to 10 and 15 and even 20 times the size of the building. And in that particular case, for car dealers are forced to carry great amounts of inventory. And this parcel B, the DeJana Truck and Equipment Company which is the building just east of our parcel B, will be using the that area to store trucks. We bring to the board's attention that it would be a lot more feasible to allow the truck storage to be right next door to the DeJana Truck and Equipment facility than to require them, if this variance is not granted or special exception variance of the special exception, to use other areas to store vehicles, which would require a lot more traffic on Pulaski Road. The other part of it is that this particular parcel B, and you'll see in the PAR, the Planning Advisory Report, which I'll get into, they say, well, they being the planning department, well, why don't you put a small building there? Well, what reason? The building has no use. They do indicate that there was an application by the Farino brothers, and they put a small building on the property. Maybe their need is different, but there is no necessity to put a building on that will not be used and will be virtually abandoned and possibly the subject of break-ins by who knows who. But you've granted those variances. I can think of 2 or 3 that we've done. One down the block from me here for Bel Air Collision, who has a storage area across the street, and he rents out space to various car dealers. You granted the Maserati that we applied for. Maserati wanted storage space. They needed it, and that was also across the street in a separate lot without a building. And Chevrolet also, who bought the building, I believe, where Blackbeard's was, and threw it down. And then they are just finally finishing a site plan to allow them to store vehicles, and did not require, or the board didn't require, the use of the building. I don't know how the chairman would want me to.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Tramarko.
I know, I turned away, I'm sorry.
Turned away.
I don't know how the board would want me to further proceed. I know that Mr. Donadio is going to read the PAR, and I'd like to answer that after he reads it, if that's okay with the chairman. And further, at this point, I would like to ask our engineer, Matt Alward, to comment on the parking generation summary. In other words, why do we need the parking that we need, and why don't we need more? And also on trip generation. So with the chairman's permission, I'd like to call Matt Alward.
All right, that'd be fine.
Good evening, Matthew Aylward with Robinson Muller Engineers at 50 Elm Street in Huntington. Last name is Aylward.
Thank you.
Using the Institute of Transportation Engineers data, 5th edition, which is data that's collected between 1980 and 2017, we can project the maximum number of vehicles that will be parked at parcel A within the peak hour. So what we came up with during the weekday peak period, which is 5 to 6 p.m., we come up with 9 maximum vehicles parked. We're proposing 30 stalls, so that leaves 21 vacant spaces. And during the Saturday peak period, which is between 4 and 6 p.m., we also have estimated, using this data, 9 maximum park spaces. Again, 30 stalls, that leaves 21 remaining empty. Now, these numbers are based on existing facilities that are studied by this Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's analyzed, they look at the data, and it basically gives us almost a real exact number of stalls anticipated to be used in a building this size.
All right, thank you.
Matt, excuse me, Matt, could you go into the coverage, the FAR and the coverage? Just, I think what I indicated was the average coverage is about 75%. I think I'm a little shy with that number. Can you comment on that, please?
Like you were right on, Mr. Tremarco, that a lot of these parcels that we see with the self-storage, because the parking is so, there's not a lot of trip generation to these facilities. They're very low intense uses. So the parking, the significant amount of parking that the town is requesting isn't really required. So the size of the parcel does not need to be as large as well. So the FARs typically that we see are around anywhere between 70, around 75%.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to call the architect just to comment on anything with respect to the colors of the building and I guess they call it the flat earth tone provisos in the ordinance. So Alex, if you have a minute, Alex Paladimenti.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Alex Badalamenti, B-A-D-A-L-A-M-E-N-T-I. We are BLD Architecture, 31 West Main Street, Patchogue, New York. I want to underscore first, maybe if we can go to the landscape plan. I think it might be your slide 1 or 2. Nope. Let's go to 1. I don't see the landscape plan. Let me underscore a couple things that Vinny touched on. This, as a mini storage, this is a very low intensity industrial use. It has really 2 basic requirements. One is its aspect ratio of its width to length, and in that, it needs a lot of overhead doors. That's just a requirement at grade level of a mini storage. The second is it needs good branding and signage. Being very sensitive to visibility from Pulaski Road, what we did with Matt was we set the building in the bottom part of the bowl. And it's very important to understand there's a 50-foot grade change from Town Line Road all the way up to the eastern edge of the property. So the building is set down into the bottom of that bowl. None of the retaining walls are visible from the outside looking in. They're only visible from inside the property looking at within. If you go to you've shown the rendering of the building, which shows it's very simple. It shows the materials on the corner, as we mentioned, the CubeSmart, their red brand and their red stripe is important to them. We're very comfortable working with planning on the articulation and the details of the building. Right now, they are natural materials, they are earth tones, and they are split-faced block and standing seam metal. If you go to slide 5, we showed this rendering in slide 6. Slide 5 is the existing landscape that's on that corner. We stripped it away for image 6 so that you could see the building without the landscape, so that you could see the berm along Town Line Road that hides the doors. But quite frankly, at the bottom of Pulaski and the corner of Town Line Road, only the upper portion of the CubeSmart is actually visible with the existing trees. If you do have the landscape plan, which I don't know where it is on your screen here, but we are adding trees. They are evergreens that we're adding wherever the building is visible to help screen those doors. We are also within the 35-foot height that is allowed by the code, and the accessory building is under the 18-foot height allowed for the accessory. We purposely oriented the building so that the narrow side of the building faces Pulaski, and the long side with the doors faces Town Line. There are no overhead doors facing Pulaski Road. They only face west and east to Town Line. So I hope that helps answer the question.
I have a question for you. I'm assuming that this storage unit is going to require some environmental controls, heating, air conditioning. Are they going to be put on the roof, or is it housed inside?
Now it's all housed within the building. These are small fan coil units, but it is heated and cooled. The accessory building is not.
Okay, so there'll be nothing on the roof?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for now, I guess you're going to have Mr. Donadio read the report, and then I'd like to comment on it.
Okay, but first, is there anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
I do have a question. I noticed on your plan that you're showing future curb cut along Pulaski Road. What would the purpose be that you're proposing it as a future curb cut?
This is Vincent Tremarco speaking. It was just put there. We're not going to use it as long as the property, the parcel B, is used for truck storage. But who knows in 10 or 15 years what might happen, and we just want I believe it's the county to be aware of the fact that we may want a curb cut in the future if for whatever reason the Janet Truck and Equipment changes its mode of operation and they no longer need our parking in parcel B.
Is there cross access between parcel B and the Janet property?
Well, I'll get into that now if you want. And you know what? I'll ask the engineer or the architect who could indicate why we can't do the cross access, which normally we would, just as a matter of convenience. But I don't know, Alex or Matt, who wants to take that one and explain why we didn't put it there.
It's Alex. I can start it and Matt can fill in the blanks. But as I mentioned, there's a 50-foot grade change in elevation from west to east. It would be a very, very steep, serious ramp along the south side to connect the parcels. And it'd probably be about, I think we calculated about 600 feet long. So the cost is very extravagant. And it would have guardrails on either side. It would be another retaining wall. We just did not think it was practical.
All right, so getting back to Mr. Tanzi's original question, you are going to use the access onto Pulaski Road from parcel B.
No, the access for parcel B is off Town Line Road.
There's an easement through parcel A.
Oh, down at the bottom? I'm sorry, it's hard for me to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that driveway along the south side of the storage building is the easement.
Oh, all right. I apologize, I didn't see it.
Well, the only reason that I brought it up, Mr. Tremarco, is that there are residences there, and that is a pretty dangerous portion of Pulaski Road, given that steep slope coming, I guess, either way, east to west or west to east. That will be one of my concerns, is that, you know, if that curb cut were to be open, that it would, you know, pose a potential hazard.
Well, yes, I understand your concern. We had, the board had the same concern when we did the new, the Jana building a few years ago. It seems to be working out. You know, certainly we don't want to be the cause of any accidents. And we just put it in there in the event we have a change of use to that parcel, and we no longer, you know, have the ability to come in through parcel A. I guess the board could condition it that we would have to come back to the board, you know, if we wanted to give an access to that parcel. And if we were to build a building there, chances are that we would need variances anyway. So I don't think my client would object if you put a condition that if we wanted to open that up, we would have to come to the board. But as I said, chances are we would have to come to the board anyway, just because of the steep slopes that exist on that parcel.
Okay. All right. Anyone else on the board have any questions?
No.
No. All right. Planning?
Mr. Chairman, I know that there are a number of residents who are waiting to speak regarding this application, so I'll be very brief. I will not read the planning advisory report into the record. I will point out for the board and for the people who are attending the meeting that planning did a very extensive review of all of the variances that the applicant is requesting. Obviously, planning feels that because of the number and the substantiality of the variances that are being requested, that clearly we cannot recommend approval of the entire application as it's presented. What planning is recommending to the board and hopefully to the applicant is that the applicant will take their proposal back to the drawing board, and they will revise their proposal to be more in conformity with zoning, require less variances, and be less impactful to the surrounding area, particularly to the residents to the north in Fort Salonga, and because it is on the boundary line between the town of Smithtown and the town of Huntington, the residents in the Huntington area to the northwest.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tremarco, do you want to respond to that, or?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll just go through the recommendations of the planning department, which not even all of them, but for example, you know, eliminate the request to increase the number of illuminated wall signs and height. It is our feeling that we need to be noticed where we are, and that they're not outrageous given the fact of the size of the property and the building. But I'm sure the board is going to look at it and make a recommendation. Revise the next recommendation, revise the proposed mini storage architecture to comply with the intent of the zoning ordinance to eliminate the need for variances. Well, obviously we can't do that because the ordinance with respect to when you apply it to mini storage it doesn't make sense as it would if you applied it to a light industrial factory building. Specifically, they talking about architecture. Again, we said, and our architect Alex said, we will do our best to comply with those requirements. And neither my client nor the architect had a problem with doing that. Revise the plan so that no buildings, walls, fences, pavement are located within the required.
No building, I'm so sorry. Revise the plan so that no building.
Walls, fences, or pavement are located within the required 50-foot front yard setback. Just based upon the topography of the property, it's really not something that can be done without variances. If we were to do variances, not do any variances and come back, we probably would have a building half the size. And obviously that's not something that would be economically feasible, given the facts and circumstances of this type of use and what we need to make an economic go of it. Provide on a building on parcel B. I don't know why we would build a building that we're not going to use, that would be basically an abandoned building and maybe some sort of could create some sort of an issue with vandals or some other issues that I can't think of now, but it doesn't make sense. A building would only cause problems, and there's really no use for it. If there was a use, if the janitor truck and equipment needed the building, certainly we would build it. But to build a building just because the ordinance says you got to have a building, which this board many times in the past had varied that requirement, just doesn't make any sense. Provided a direct vehicle cross access. Well, Alex and Matthew already explained. I believe it was Matthew that said we'd need a 600-foot ramp to get from parcel A to parcel B. That ramp would have to be built up, and I guess with retaining walls and rails and all that kind of stuff. So it's just not not only financially feasible, but probably an unsafe situation. So in this situation, it doesn't make sense. If the property was flat or flatter, we would consider it. If you will remember the new building, the Dejana new building and the first building, which this board granted variances many, many years ago to, there is cross access between the two buildings because they are basically at the same level and elevation. So we did do that and it made sense to do it. Reduce the FAR request for mini storage building by reducing the building size, adding lot area or creating a cellar. Well, if we reduce the building size, we're not going to gain the revenue that we need to maintain the project, the mini storage warehouse. We have had this looked at by various mini storage experts, as well as the company that's going to help us with the franchise. And if you don't do 100,000 square feet or close to it, you just don't make money. The last variance we did in St. James, which was a very long, narrow piece on Middle Country Road, basically between car dealers on one side and a manufacturing company on the other side. That building was close to 100,000 square feet. And the reason being, again, economically, it doesn't make sense to build less because the cost of construction and the cost of the real estate is so expensive. The creating of a cellar is an interesting point. Our franchise people have indicated to us that there are many mini storage users, whether they be residential users or commercial users, do not like to store their valuables underground for whatever reason. I don't know, but that seems to be something that it's a psychological thing, maybe, we don't know, but it wouldn't make sense for us to do it. Not to mention the cost of digging out and putting a basement storage units basic underground. So for those reasons, we think the variances that we're requesting are reasonable, only because it's a mini storage application. And summing up, I'll get into what other uses we could do there, which are certainly not as benign as this mini storage. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tramarko. Now we're going to open it up to the public. Please remember, everybody gets one opportunity to speak. And then when everybody's done, we'll bring Mr. Tramarko back to answer your concerns. All right, can we have the first person, please?
Yes, Chairman. I have the Fort Salonga Association first.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, all. My name is Keith McCartney. That's spelled M-A-C-A-R-T-N-E-Y. And I reside at 273 Bread and Cheese Hollow Road in Fort Salonga.
Okay, Keith.
Okay, with the board's indulgence, I would like to read into file letter that was mailed last week, dated February 5th.
Okay, when you're reading the letter in, please, if you could read it slowly so we can get the recorded properly.
Right. Okay, it's gonna take a little while, but I'll be glad to.
Yeah, most people have a tendency to speed up when they're reading.
Okay. This letter relates to the recent notice provided to neighboring residents of the intended location for an extensive construction project by the applicant. Included in the letter is the BZA hearing date of February 9, 2016, February 9, 2021 at 6 p.m. and a description of requests listing some 25 items, including variances and special exemptions. The legal notice was sent on behalf of ADT Real Estate Holding, LLC, by Vincent Tramarko, Esquire. The requests listed will be primarily subject of the hearing and were provided below. Providing below are comments to each of the requests listed in the notice. If there are changes to these or comments to each of the requests listed below.
I'm sorry, if there are changes to these.
Okay. There are changes to these requests, additions, or modifications. We respectfully ask that we be informed accordingly so we can review them for comment as well. It should also be noted at this time that our residential properties bound the subject property immediately to the north, northeast, and northwest, beginning just across Pulaski Road, including residents and visitors living and traveling on historic Bread and Cheese Hollow Road. The following comments will address each item in the order they appear in the legal notice of February 9, 2021 BZA hearing. Variance to exceed the maximum gross floor area ratio of the LI zoning district, increasing the maximum FAR from 42% to 69% for proposed 100,000 square foot mini storage warehouse. Comment. Allowance of a variance this extensive will create an unsightly sized building completely out of context with the residential area it borders. It would present as an eyesore for the southern entrance to the hamlet of Fort
I'm
Tolanda,
sorry, as an eyesore for the southern entrance to,
the hamlet of Fort Tolanda, and should be more attractive and homogeneous in appearance. Considering the intended operation, we believe the business would be viable even if the size is reduced. Variance to increase maximum floor area ratio for mini storage to 62%. Comment, similar as above, the necessity to expand this amount is unnecessary. Variance to permit exterior building materials to not have flat earth tone finish. Comment, a flat earth tone finish building would be far less unsightly to the neighbors and surrounding community. We vehemently object to bold colors, as once again, they would be encourages even with the surrounding buildings and serve as an eyesore to the northerly, westerly, and easterly residence area. Variance to permit storage unit door to be visible from the public street. The door should be comment. The door should be visibly only after entering from the street, as there is no need for the door to be visible from public street. Variance to permit any wall higher than 1 story visible off-site to not be enhanced by ornamentation. Comment, in following the above theme of simple earth tone colorization, plain but pleasing building design is warranted. Variance that no fence shall be permitted in the required front yards. Comment, unobtrusive boundary fencing with a landscape buffer would be acceptable. Variance to permit a 6-foot fence in the required front yard, reduced minimum front yard on Pulaski Road. Comment, unobtrusive boundary fencing with landscape buffer would be acceptable. Variance to permit a 6-foot fence in the required front yard, reduced minimum front yard town line road. Comment, unobtrusive boundary fencing with landscape buffer would be acceptable. Variance, reduced parking from 200 stalls to 30 stalls. Comment, 30 stalls is acceptable. Variance, reduce minimum number of truck loading spaces from 3 to 0. 0 truck loading spaces is acceptable. Variance, reduce minimum yard side setback from 20 foot to 10 foot for accessory building. Comment, in deference to the surrounding community along and across Pulaski Road, the setback must be no less than 20 feet. Variance, permit a 12-foot high retaining wall in the required front yard, Pulaski Road. Comment, acceptable. However, any retaining wall fronting Pulaski must have a minimum of 20 feet of landscape buffer. Variance, to increase maximum height of retaining wall from 4 to 12 foot on Pulaski. Comment, in keeping with the above themes, retaining wall must be respectful to the surrounding residents by use of landscaping as an attractive and functional buffer. Variance, to permit a 6-foot fence on top of a 12-foot retaining wall totaling 18 foot. Comment, in keeping with above themes, retaining wall must be attractive and functional to surrounding community to use of sufficient landscaping. Now, right now, I'm going to interject my own personal thought on this. By putting up an additional 6-foot estate type fencing would make this look like a prison, not a business. Back to comments. Variance, increase a max height of a retaining wall from 6 foot to 12 foot on south side of property. In keeping with above themes, retaining wall must be attractive on sides facing surrounding community by use of sufficient landscaping. Variance, permit an 8-foot berm in the required front yard, town line. Comment, in keeping with the above themes, berm must be attractive to surrounding community with sufficient and functional landscaping. Variance, to permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes greater than 15%. Comment, must satisfy all SECRA requirements. Variance, permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25 feet. Comment, must satisfy all SECRA requirements. Variance, increase the maximum number of wall signs from 1 to 2. Comment, wall signage to be limited to 1 on Town Line Road entrance side only. No signage to face or be visible to the residential community. Variance, increase maximum height of 2 wall signs from 15 feet to 24 feet. Comment, not acceptable. Must limit sign size to 15 foot or less. Variance, increase area of ground sign from 32 square foot to 80 square foot. Comment, not acceptable. Must limit sign to 32 feet or less. Special exception, excuse me. Permit outdoor storage in the Long Island zoning district. Outdoor storage should conform to the Long Island zoning district without exception. Variance for a special exemption standard. Permit outdoor storage not on the same lot as the principal use. Comment, disagree. Must be on same lot as principal use. Variance of special exemption standard. Permit outdoor storage to exceed gross floor area. Comment, outdoor storage requirement should not exceed gross floor area. The history of this property requires all DEIS, a full DEIS as part of the SECRA process. There was a more monitored cleanup by the DEC several years ago due to illegal dumping. Subsequently, the Dejana Trucking has parked hundreds of cars without permits on a permeable surface on this property. A complete environmental impact study should be done. Additionally, a detailed current traffic study should be conducted as well. This particular corner is heavily trafficked property. Heavily trafficked with cars, large trucks, landscaping, and carting vehicles, and school buses. There's always steady local traffic with additional vehicular traffic traveling to the Northport VA facility and 25A. Both Pulaski and Town Line roads are also heavily trafficked by trucks to the Dejana facilities to the east of the Covanta plant in Huntington to the south. The site plan
The what?
provided
The what plant?
Covanta.
Thank you.
The site plan provided by the Smithtown Planning Department indicates the number of commercial vehicles permitted is 200. Proposed is 425 vehicles, and the special exemption to permit outdoor storage in Long Island Zone LI. We are strongly opposed to the request for outdoor storage of 425 vehicles, as well as the square footage of the proposed self-storage facility. Sincerely, Keith McCartney, President, Fort Salonga Association.
All right.
If I may add one other thing, that area is known for flooding during heavy rains. That has to be addressed as well. What are they going to do with that?
All right, thank you, Keith.
Okay, next up I have Barbara. Go ahead and unmute yourself there.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Barbara.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Could you introduce yourself, please? State your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please.
Absolutely. My name is Barbara Mandelik, M-A-N-D-E-L-I-K. I reside at 35 Gull Hill Drive, Fort Salonga. I live on a neighboring property to the applicant. I just want to mention that I did receive the legal notice of the hearing this evening. I want to point out that the notice received from Mr. Tremarco's office indicated the address as 2 Pulaski Road. I think that this will come as a surprise to the restaurant Relish that it is soon to become a mini storage facility. I think having the incorrect address on the notice that went out to neighbors and whoever else legally that it had to go out to definitely could cause a lot of confusion. So I wanted to just bring that to the board's attention.
All right, thank you.
The parcel in its entirety is less than 10 acres. And the applicant's plans to build 100,000 square foot mini storage facility, which in and of itself is an oxymoron because there's nothing mini about it, in this area is excessive. I know Mr. Tremarco discussed the floor area ratios, but I believe, and I asked the board to reject the variances. The proposal in and of itself is grossly outsized for the acreage available. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit outdoor storage of commercial vehicles, far exceeding the allowable gross floor area ratio. Also, to place his outdoor storage not on the same lot as a self-storage building. The applicant's proposing outdoor storage of 425 commercial vehicles, far exceeding the code requirements. And we did see tonight pictures of cars that have been parked there currently without any permits. They're sitting there, it's unsightly, and they're being stored on a permeable surface. This property just a few years ago was the site of a DEC monitored cleanup due to toxic dumping. The project that is proposed requires massive earth moving, building of berms, retaining walls, digging foundations, and Mr. Tremarco mentioned it's environmentally sensitive. There's going to be increases in traffic and noise during both the construction and the actual operation of the facilities. This large environmental undertaking warrants a complete EIS. The property is located at the intersection of two heavily trafficked county roads. The site plan, as was pointed out this evening by a member of the board, shows an entrance to the self-storage building on Town Line, but it also depicts a future planned curb cut and driveway on the hill on Pulaski Road, located only about 100 yards west of that major intersection and extremely close to the ingress and egress for the exiting Dejana buildings on Pulaski Road. This is a two-lane county road. There have been numerous accidents and fatalities on the corner of Town Line, Bread and Cheese, and Pulaski Road. It's a hilly area. The ingress and egress on both county roads in close proximity to the intersection on a hill requires a full study and should be included in the full EIS. And I'd like to add that there should be a covenant restriction for the driveway on Pulaski, because Mr. Tremarco has left that open in case it's needed for future building or development. So I would like to see a covenant restriction. As a point of perspective of the residential community to the board, I'd like to explain that many of the surrounding residential homes sit on higher elevations than this property. There are several variances included for a higher than required fences and retaining walls. There is no wall high enough to block the visuals of this operation from the neighbors. And to further offend the community, the applicant wants a variance to eliminate the use of flat earth tone finished building materials. The proposed self-storage company, CubeSmart building colors are red and blue. I asked the board to deny this variance, as it would be another eyesore to the surrounding residential community. And I mentioned that apparently missing from the site plan, but talked to tonight, are landscaping and shrubbery. However, when there were slides put up this evening showing landscape and shrubbery, those were caricatures of what's to be. It wasn't the reality. The reality shots that we saw, you could see it's just a mess of weeds and dirt piled up. And of course, the pictures this evening also showed all of the vehicles that are parked on this property without permits on a permeable surface. The commercial enterprise has already been forced into our neighborhood. This has had a negative effect visually on property values and on the quality of life issues we have, including safety and noise. Anyone traveling on historic Bread and Cheese and surrounding roads will be assaulted by this proposal.
You still there, Barbara?
I think she might have accidentally cut out. You want me to call on the next participant, and if she gets back in, I'll grab her?
Okay, let's do that. If she comes back, we'll put her right on.
I have it listed as Zerlin family here. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Joanna Zerlin. I'm here with my husband, Adam.
Could you spell your last name?
Sure.
Give your address, please, so we get it on the record correctly.
No problem. The last name is Zerlin, Z as in zebra, E-R-L-I-N as in Nancy.
Okay.
And we're at 29 Gull Hill Drive, Salonga, actually just a couple of doors down from Barbara Mandelic, who just spoke.
Okay, fine.
I sent an email to the board earlier today, so I just wanted to put it on the record. And if it's easier for the reporter to consult that email when typing everything out for the meeting, that's, by all means. But I basically wanted to say that
No, I need to get every word as you're saying it.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So I wrote, my name is Joanna Citronbaum-Zerlin, and I live at 29 Gull Hill Drive with my husband and 2 young children. So Gull Hill Drive is, for the record, it's northwest of the proposed site. We are concerned about, Barbara, I have to say, Barbara put it a lot more eloquently than I did, but in my email, I said that we are concerned about the additional noise, traffic, pollution, and other issues that will come along with the buildings and parking lot proposed for the corner of Pulaski Road and Bread and Cheese Hollow Road.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Oh, sure. I'm so sorry. We are upset that a noisy eyesore is being considered for a lot so close to and within view of our road and neighborhood. Because of its curve and because of how fast people drive, this stretch of Pulaski Road between Bread and Cheese Hollow Road and Gull Hill Drive and beyond in either direction has seen its fair share of accidents. And we already have a lot of traffic in both directions with the Dejana building and the entrance exit to the Sunken Meadow Parkway being down the road from us on Pulaski Road. So the last thing we need is even more vehicles, especially big, loud, emission-spewing trucks. We ask that the town of Smithtown, BZA, please take our concerns and that of our neighbors seriously when considering this project, especially the variances and other requests, as we wouldn't just be driving by often. Anything that is there will have a direct impact on us in many ways on a daily basis. That was the email I sent earlier today. And I just wanted to add as well that Barbara mentioned this, but for anybody who doesn't know, with Gull Hill Drive, you have to drive up a steep incline just to get to our houses. I mean, there's houses along the incline, but just to get to my house, you have to drive up a steep incline. And so the view of CubeSmart and that property there would have to be the height of the trees and everything to cover it would just have to be incredible. So there's really, the importance of it not being seen it's greatly important because, we will see it from our vantage point.
I'm sorry. If you're not speaking, can you please mute your microphone?
And that was basically all I wanted to add. But Barbara kind of put it a lot more eloquently than I did.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Hello, this is Barbara. I think I was cut off. I'm not sure.
Oh, hi, Barbara.
Go ahead. The phone, you had disconnected, but go ahead.
Okay, I don't know where I ended. I don't want to go through I don't want to put you through the whole thing.
I the last thing you spoke about, I wrote down is safety and noise.
Okay, let me just get to that for you. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay, let me just start with that. As a concerned neighbor and member of the Fort Salonga community, I asked the board to carefully consider the 28 variances and special exceptions. The commercial enterprise has already been forced into our neighborhood. This has had a negative effect visually on property values and on quality of life issues, including safety and noise. Anyone traveling on historic Bread and Cheese and surrounding roads will be, let me get off my phone so that you, anyone traveling on historic Bread and Cheese and surrounding road will be visually assaulted by this proposal. We're very concerned.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, ma'am. Are you?
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
Assaulted by this proposal. It's okay.
Right. We're very concerned about the future impact this site will have on our community. it should be denied as presented and pushed back to the applicant for major revisions. Our hope is that this board will speak for the residents. The leaders we elected were confident when they appointed this board that you would be fair to all property owners and not partial to developers. We appreciate your consideration greatly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, who's up next?
Okay, I have Lee DiNapoli.
Hello, Lee. Hello, Lee.
Lee, try unmuting yourself. I sent you a request. There you go.
You all right now?
Hello?
Lee? Hello, Lee?
Yes, we're unmuted, but I can't.
Lee?
We can hear you, Lee.
Oh, okay, good.
Lee,
Hi,
could you,
yes, this is his wife, Sharon DiNapoli.
all right, could you introduce yourself, spell your last name, and give your address, please, for the record?
Certainly. Sharon DiNapoli, DINAPOLI. My address is 589 Pulaski Road, Kings Park, New York, 11754.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And I live almost directly across from Dejana now. And I'm still a working person that leaves my driveway, tries to leave my driveway every morning about 7:30. And even at that early hour, I have to wait sometimes 5 to 7 minutes to be able to pull out. And many mornings I'm trying to get to the Sunken Meadow Parkway entrance, and I have to go around a transport trailer that's waiting for Dejana to open to bring all their cars or trucks in there. So I can't imagine if that variance was allowed for the curb cut on Pulaski Road, what would happen to the traffic conditions, the safety of the children on school buses every morning, and the environment. When the Dejana was constructing, the air pollution by our homes was horrendous. I still have toxic waste that I can't get off my windows no matter what I wash them with. So I can't imagine what would happen when this new mini storage facility is erected. And we're up on a hill. I have a 185-foot driveway into my property, all uphill, and it would be an eyesore every day of my life. So I hope you take into consideration all these things from the residents in the neighborhood that have to actually put up with the commercial properties that are around us now, and don't let this building go up as is right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, next I have Karen Welkes.
Hi, my name is Karen Welkes. My address is 53 Heights Road in Fort Salonga.
Please spell your last name.
W-E-L-K-I-S.
Good, buddy.
Thank you. If you're not speaking, please turn your microphone off.
I'm piggybacking on many of the things that have already been said, so I'll be briefer. I can tell you that I live in another part of Fort Salonga, so we're all representing our neighbors in our areas. Keith is on Bread and Cheese, Barbara is on Gull Hill, Lee is on Pulaski, and we're farther down on Heights Road, Rochelle Lane, Brewster. Everything that's gone on with the applicant previous to this has been a nightmare. It used to take me maybe one light to make a left and head off to the parkway. I can sit there for 3 or 4 lights now. And today I had to figure, along with other people, I had to figure a way around this truck, this huge truck that was basically across almost 2 lanes of Pulaski. And as you know, there are only 2 lanes in order to get east, to find my way east. So it was quite dangerous. We were all trying to move around on an opposing lane. It has not worked, as Mr. Trimarco has said. It hasn't worked at all. And we all are dealing with it, but we don't want to deal with it anymore. The history of this applicant is that there's a lot proposed, but very few promises kept. And once the buildings are up and once the landscaping is in, nobody is changing anything. And the town is certainly not coming after them. They've had hundreds of violations over the years and are still operating. That illegal storage in this third property is an absolute monstrosity. We cannot depend upon these people to do what they say they're going to do. Of course, I understand we have to stay with the facts. And as I said, I'm piggybacking on what everyone else has said already. I want to just emphasize a couple of things again. The curb cut has to be out. 10, 15 years, I hope to still be around in 10, 15 years. And that curb cut can never happen. Pulaski simply cannot take any more traffic, whatever the reason for it is. The wall signs, we don't have any advertising on Pulaski now in this area. We can't start. If it's got to be on Town Line, so be it, but it certainly can't face the southern entrance to the bucolic community of Fort Salonga. I really don't need to be telling my guests that they can make a left at Curb Smart. The landscaping also has to be very specific because, as it was said, it doesn't look like that at all. And a few evergreen trees are not going to make it. It needs to be landscaped and buffered throughout all seasons. The views have to be concealed. You must think of the residents who've invested their money in this community. My husband and I have lived here for 47 years, and it just keeps getting worse. And what's very strange is that the master plan has been introduced, and yet no attention has been given to the fringe areas being the borders of Smithtown. We keep getting dumped on. We are part of the master plan. We have to be considered. These communities are important. The residential areas have to be preserved. The bars on the fencing, I think Mr. Trimarco said they would be 4 feet apart. 4 feet apart, anyone can pass through that. So I'm not quite sure if I just got it wrong or if this is just another beard. There's got to be a large buffer. There's got to be safety first. And lastly, I'd like to point out that I don't even understand the need for this facility other than as a reason to allow 425 vehicles to be parked there, since there are 3 other, quote, mini storage facilities within a few miles. One in Northport, one in Comac, and one in Melville. Why we would need this here, I don't know. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
I don't have any other hands raised. Just let people know.
Let's give it a minute.
Yeah, just folks, the hand, raise your hand button is on the lower right corner at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a smiley face. If you click on that and you'll see raise hand, you have to hit that button, raise hand. I have somebody that I see an applause. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
an accident.
Can I just add something for what you just said? I tried
Who's
that.
speaking? Who's speaking?
It's Karen, but I'm just trying to give a direction. The direction that you gave about the smiley face doesn't work. What people have to do is they have to click on participants. If they click on participants at the bottom of the screen, it then says raise hand. The reactions, the smiley face doesn't work.
No.
Okay, so again, I do have somebody's hand up. Hang on, who do we have? We have Mark and Judy.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mark.
Okay, my name is Mark Ambrosius. It's Ambrosius, 27 Gull Hill Drive, Fort Salonga. At the beginning of the presentation, it was mentioned that there would be less truck traffic. My question is, how are 400 and some odd vehicles going to be delivered to this parking area unless they're through car carriers? And car carriers coming down that road is just a dangerous situation. I've encountered traffic outside of Dejana's 6 o'clock in the morning as trucks are parked there unloading vehicles, and it's dark, it's at night, they're early in the morning. It's just a dangerous situation with all the, the expected traffic that will come. And I just wanted to make people aware of that how those cars getting in there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Do we have anyone else?
No, I don't see anyone's hands up. If you're having trouble with it and you want to use the chat function, I'll give you a second. Okay, I have, I have Fort Salonga Association, Mr. McCartney again. I don't know if that's permitted, Chair.
No, everybody gets one opportunity.
I just have one quick safety comment.
Quickly.
Okay. The corner.
Identify yourself again, please.
Keith McCartney, MACARTNEY, 273 Bread and Cheese Hollow Road, Fort Salonga. The corner of Town Line as you're turning onto Pulaski, if they could widen that corner, if this is all approved, to allow safer turning of trucks onto Pulaski going eastbound, would alleviate a lot of traffic problems of big trucks with trailers trying to make that swing.
All right. Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
I do not, and I don't have anybody using the chat function either, Chairman.
No one else?
No, no one has their hand up. No one's using the chat function. No.
Okay, that's it. We'll bring Mr. Tremarco back. He can answer some of the concerns. When he's done, we'll close the hearing. Okay, Mr. Tremarco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My client, myself, and the architect and engineer are
You turn your head.
I moved my head, I'm sorry. Well aware of the concerns of the residents on the north side of Pulaski Road. But a couple of things that I would like the residents and the board to think about. As far as the use, which is obviously a mini storage warehouse, this is probably the most benign use that you can use for an industrial property. We went through it, and I'm not going to belabor it, how many cars go in and out, the amount of parking spaces that are required. So when you look at alternatives, which there are plenty, a factory producing electronic equipment, a type of business that builds who knows, radiators and so forth, all permitted under the zoning, the light industrial zoning. We do understand that the residents are concerned, but if the residents would think about it, this is probably the best use for this property and the least most intrusive of all of the uses that we're permitted to
I'm sorry,
Mr. Tramarko.
build on that property. I'm sorry.
permitted, that we're permitted to build on that property.
On that property. For example, we could have a moving and storage company. There would be many, many more trucks moving in and out than the 2 or 3 or 5 cars a day that go in and out. Probably more cars than trucks will bring transport stuff, products, whatever you want to call it, to be stored in this particular facility. Believe it or not, there are uses here that are really not such nice uses with respect to the type of traffic it generates and the parking required. Any decent factory, if you look in the Hauppauge Industrial Park, you know, they have 50 or 60 employees, and they all drive cars and they go in and out at least twice a day, not to mention truck deliveries in and out. So when you think about it, this is probably the best use for this piece of property. And with respect to the number of trucks, trucks are taken from the parcel B and fitted with various components for various utility companies and construction companies. So there's not an influx of 200 or 300 trucks a day or even 50 trucks a day. As they are used and sold or delivered to various dealers, they are replaced. So when you think about it, this use on parcel B is certainly much more benign. I hate to use that word again, but benign than a factory use on that property. We didn't zone the property. The property's been zoned light industrial for many, many, many years. And my client has a right to build on the property. And we again ask the residents and the board, of course, to look at alternatives that may be much worse than this use, which we think is the best use, not only for ourselves, but also for the neighbors. Dejana has been there for a long time, the truck and equipment company, and I think they have been a good neighbor over the years from the very beginning, which I think they opened up in the early 90s when the founder of the company, Pete Dejana, built a building there. And we try to be good neighbors. We help out when it's snowing and try to do the right thing by the neighbors who happen to live across the street from industrial property. We didn't make it so. This has been the zoning for many years. But still, we want to live in harmony with our neighbors. But if the neighbors feel that nothing should be built there, well, we all know that's not going to happen, whether Dejana decides to move forward and the board decides to grant the variance. And if the board doesn't, well, we would have alternatives. So we would like to try and work together with the board, with the planning department, and with the Fort Salonga Association. However, we're not going to give up the idea of a mini storage facility, because that really is the best use for the area. And I asked the board and even the people who spoke tonight to think about what other uses could be put there. And maybe you look at the table of use that the town has in the planning department, and think about how good this use is compared to other uses. So again, we ask the board for its favorable consideration. We feel that this application is in conformity with the character of the area, because that whole area on the south side of Pulaski Road and on the east and west side of Town Line Road is all zoned commercial, light industrial, and on the Huntington side, I-5 industrial, heavy industry. There's the Covanta incinerator. So our use, although yes, it's an industrial commercial type use, it's probably the least most effective against what the people in the area are concerned about. So again, we ask the board to think about it. It has very little or no environmental effect. As you can see, as far as the sanitary code goes, it's well within the range of what the health department allows for sanitary flow. And given the fact of the use that we have, we don't feel it's substantial. And is the application or the applicant a self-created situation? No, the property's vacant. My client had the will to buy this piece of property, work with the DEC to clean it up, and not many people would have stepped to the plate and done that. So again, we're not going to leave the property vacant. We hope that the board will grant us these variances. And again, we're ready and willing and able for our architect, our engineer, and the owner to work with the Fort Salonga Civics. So with that, I'll ask the board if they have any questions of me. I think there was one thing that I want to correct, that I didn't say there was a 4-foot space between the rails of the fence. I believe I said 4 inches. If I said 4 feet, then yeah, the lady would be right. But I don't think I did. And anyway, it's a 4-inch space. It's an estate fence. And I'm sure you all know what that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tramarko. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. One more.
There's no more.
All righty.
You done?
There is one more case on the agenda, case number 18283,
Hold on one second, please.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Case number 18283, CCI Design and Build Corporation, 205 Core Road, Kings Park. The location of the property, the east side of Core Road, 757 feet north of Twin Oaks Drive. The property is owned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 10 feet to 6 feet, to reduce total side yards from 26 feet to 16 feet for an existing fence encroachment.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted affidavits of posting and mailing. I'm going to request another adjournment. The reason being that I believe CCI Design and the adjoining neighbor have reached an understanding.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I believe that CCI Design and the adjoining neighbor where there is the fence encroachment have reached a resolution to settle the matter and the location of the boundary line. I haven't seen it in writing, but I did speak to my client, and I also spoke to Dennis Ahern, the client for the adjoining neighbor, and it appears that they are working it out to the satisfaction of both. So again, I asked the board to adjourn it. It makes sense to do it, and everybody will come out happy in the end.
We'll adjourn it to March 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think that.
Oh, I'm sorry. March 30th. All right, okay. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.